Zeus and the Infinite Notifications, boring Greek myth. Dawn glimmers along the marble arches of Olympus, and for one hush-thin moment, even the clouds hold their breath. Sweet cedar smoke drifts, columns gleam, and the sky wears a pale lavender too soft for thunder. But this isn't the prelude to a roll of lightning, this is simply the first ping of history's busiest inbox. In his high hall, Zeus leans back as a black glass tablet blinks awake. One cobalt glow, then 50, then 500. Each light is a tiny prayer bubble, reminders, requests, memos from gods who stayed up too late. The sound is no storm roar, only a patient chime that repeats until even a king feels small. He breathes, scrolling slowly, letting the swirl of messages fade to something like distant rain. A gentle hum fills the vaulted room. Ambrosia cools in a silver cup. Somewhere, a mechanical owl powers down for sleep. Zeus closes his eyes a second longer than usual, wondering whether silence is still tucked between notifications if one listens hard enough. And so drifts open this soft story of a thundermaker, a glowing screen, and the lullaby rhythm of endless alerts, told at a pace easy enough to let heavy lids fall before the next gentle ping arrives. Chapter 1. The Inbox of the Gods. The first rays of dawn, or what passed for dawn in the perpetually twilight-tinged halls of the newly renovated Olympus, weren't gentle. They were aggressively filtered through a smart glass ceiling designed by Hephaestus, who'd apparently taken an online course in modern architectural aesthetics for the digitally inclined deity. Instead of a tranquil awakening, Zeus was jolted awake by the shrill symphony of notifications emanating from his personalized Olympus cloud tablet, a gleaming obsidian slab that somehow managed to look both ancient and ridiculously modern at the same time. The tablet, a gift from a fawning tech startup that promised divine scalability and unparalleled cloud storage, was now the bane of Zeus's existence. It was a constant, buzzing, glowing reminder that even the king of the gods couldn't escape the tyranny of the digital age. His once majestic throne room was now cluttered with charging cables, scattered wireless earbuds, and the faint scent of ozone generated by the sheer power of his digital kingdom. The first notification, a particularly aggressive spam message from Hades's underworld marketing department, flashed across the screen. Upgrade your soul storage. Limited time offer. 50% off Karen's Express ferry service. It screamed in a garish font. Zeus grumbled, swiping it away with a weary sigh that echoed through the cavernous halls. He could almost hear the faint groans of those trapped in the digital purgatory of his inbox, their souls flickering like low-bandwidth internet connections. Next came a barrage of prayer DMs, a curious mix of millennial angst and ancient supplication. OMG, Zeus! My dating app profile is getting no likes. Send help, and maybe some lightning bolts for extra effect, one read. Another. Zeus, my essay on the socio-economic implications of the Trojan War is due tomorrow. Please inspire me. I'll sacrifice a digital goat if it works. Zeus rolled his eyes, muttering about the lack of piety in the modern era. These mortals, with their incessant demands and questionable use of emojis, were making the job of ruling Olympus infinitely more complicated. He glanced at the swirling vortex of unread emails, a digital maelstrom that seemed to grow with each passing second. Athena's budget report, meticulously crafted with spreadsheets and pie charts that would make even the most seasoned accountant weep, demanded immediate attention. It included a detailed breakdown of ambrosia consumption, nectar procurement, and the surprisingly high cost of maintaining Poseidon's trident, which, according to the report, had suffered significant damage after being used as a makeshift selfie stick During Poseidon's ill-fated attempt at going viral on the Seascape Gods TikTok channel, Ares, the god of war, had sent a flurry of requests to approve various strategic maneuvers in a newfangled virtual reality wargame. The battle plans, painstakingly illustrated with pixelated soldiers and miniature CGI catapults, were so complicated that Zeus nearly gave himself a headache trying to decipher them. Ares, ever the impulsive one, had clearly not been trained in the fine art of proper digital documentation, resulting in a lengthy thread of disjointed instructions and overly enthusiastic battle cries punctuated by copious use of fire emojis. And then there was Hera, the queen of the gods, armed with her state-of-the-art cybersecurity systems, was meticulously monitoring the activities of her fellow Olympians. Her relentless, suspicious activity alerts flooded Zeus's inbox. The alleged offenses? Hermes' late-night scrolling through the Olympian gossip forum, Aphrodite's questionable use of filters on her profile pictures, and a particularly heated debate in the Divine Discord server, a private group chat that Zeus, in a moment of weakness, had approved during a particularly dull meeting of the gods' council. Hermes himself, the messenger god, added to the chaos. His digital communication center, previously a well-organized hub for divine messages, was now a digital free-for-all. Endless scrolls, now represented as urgent digital messages, and an avalanche of emails flooded his inbox. His attempts to sort through the digital deluge were futile, leaving him drowning in a sea of spam. Promotions for cloud-based ambrosia delivery services, and the relentless pleas of desperate mortals. He was clearly struggling to keep up with the sheer volume of data pouring through his system, leaving a trail of unanswered emails, forgotten tasks, and ever-growing stress levels. The sheer volume of digital communication was overwhelming, even for a god who could command the elements. Zeus found himself trapped in a vicious cycle, frantically trying to keep up with the demands of both his divine duties and his ever-expanding digital workload. He was constantly bombarded with notifications, emails, messages, and alerts, each vying for his attention. His attempts to mediate between the various demands of the gods and mortals felt like trying to steer a chariot through a digital storm. He longed for the simpler times, when divine decrees were delivered via thunderbolts, and the only notifications were the rumbling of the earth and the crackle of lightning. But those days were gone, replaced by the relentless pinging of his tablet, the incessant updates on his phone, and the constant pressure to respond, react, and engage. Even his attempts at divine relaxation were punctuated by pop-up ads for new and improved nectar dispensers and virtual reality training sessions for handling mythological beasts. Even a brief escape to the newly installed virtual reality Mount Olympus, designed to help him unwind and connect with his inner god, only served to intensify the onslaught of notifications. His avatar was constantly besieged by digital representations of disgruntled mortals demanding attention and digital sacrifices. The VR environment, meant to be serene, was nothing short of chaotic. The sheer weight of his digital existence left Zeus feeling drained, frustrated, and more than a little bit overwhelmed. He was the king of the gods, yet he felt like nothing more than a highly stressed digital administrator, desperately trying to manage an overflowing inbox, appease disgruntled demigods, and somehow maintain his grip on his crumbling divine domain. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, the wielder of thunderbolts, was being conquered not by titans or monsters, but by the relentless barrage of notifications from his Olympus cloud tablet. The thought was enough to make even a god reach for a virtual glass of nectar, and maybe a very strong digital espresso. The tablet screen illuminated, revealing Athena's budget report in all its glory. It wasn't just a report, it was a monument to spreadsheet artistry, a testament to Athena's unwavering dedication to fiscal responsibility, even in the face of divine chaos. Rows and columns marched across the screen, each cell meticulously filled with numbers, formulas, and pie charts that shimmered with an almost unholy precision. Zeus squinted, his headache worsening. He could almost hear the faint whirring of Athena's calculating mind, a digital engine churning out financial figures with terrifying efficiency. The report began with a comprehensive overview of Olympus's financial health, or lack thereof. A rather alarming bar graph displayed a precipitous drop in nectar sales, attributed, according to a detailed footnote, to increased competition from artisanal small-batch ambrosia producers utilizing innovative fermentation techniques. Zeus had no idea what that meant, but it sounded vaguely threatening. Next came a detailed breakdown of ambrosia consumption, categorized by Olympian and presented in a three-dimensional pie chart that spun slowly, mocking Zeus's attempts to decipher its intricacies. Apparently, Ares had single-handedly consumed 37% of the total ambrosia supply, an extravagance attributed, in another meticulous footnote, to his training regimen for enhanced virtual reality combat efficiency. A separate pie chart, equally dizzying, showed Poseidon's contribution to this alarming statistic. Apparently, virtual reality sea battles were as calorific as they were visually spectacular. Then came the piece de resistance, the expenses related to Poseidon's trident, a sprawling spreadsheet filled with repair costs, maintenance fees, and surprisingly detailed invoices from Hephaestus's divine gadget repair shop, documented the ongoing saga of Poseidon's selfie stick-related misadventures. The total cost, a figure so astronomical it caused Zeus's virtual reality throne to momentarily glitch, far exceeded the entire budget of the Underworld's marketing department, and possibly Hades' entire annual revenue stream. The report meticulously listed each individual repair, from the replacement of a chipped point caused by a failed attempt at a TikTok dance-off with a group of mermaids, to the extensive polishing required after it was inexplicably used as a makeshift conductor's baton during a virtual concert featuring the Muses. A particularly damning section focused on the unexpected expenses category. This included a hefty sum allocated to replacing Hermes' frequently lost digital stylus. Apparently, the messenger god had developed a habit of leaving it on various mythical beasts, and occasionally even in the river Styx, and a large amount for damage control concerning Aphrodite's recent viral incident with a photo filter that, according to the report, severely misrepresented her divine beauty, causing widespread confusion among mortal worshippers. The footnotes were equally alarming, filled with arcane accounting jargon that left Zeus utterly bewildered. There were references to depreciation of divine assets, the amortization of ambrosia inventory, and the optimal capital allocation strategy for mythological creature management. Zeus had ruled Olympus for millennia, faced down titans and monsters, even navigated the treacherous waters of inter-god political squabbles. But this was a new level of warfare. This was financial warfare, and Athena, his own daughter, was a ruthless general in this new battleground. He scrolled through page after page of spreadsheets, bar charts, and pie charts, a vortex of numbers and financial jargon that threatened to swallow him whole. He felt a growing sense of dread, a feeling not dissimilar to the one he experienced facing the wrath of the 100-headed Hydra. But instead of razor-sharp teeth and poisonous venom, he was facing something far more terrifying, the cold, hard reality of Olympus's dwindling finances. He sighed, a long, weary sigh that echoed through the virtual halls of Mount Olympus, disturbing the digital flock of sheep peacefully grazing in the digital meadows. The report concluded with a stark summary. Olympus was significantly over budget. The deficit was so large it was represented not just by a simple number, but by a flashing red graphic that seemed to pulsate menacingly on the screen, accompanied by a particularly shrill electronic chime. It was a visual representation of the fiscal apocalypse. Zeus, momentarily forgetting his divine status, let out a frustrated groan. He felt a sense of defeat that was surprisingly relatable. He understood at that moment the universal frustration of navigating complex accounting systems and facing the cold, hard numbers of budgetary reality. Even for a god king, keeping track of expenses, balancing the books, and understanding the convoluted world of divine finance was a daunting task. He closed his eyes, picturing his old life, a time before the cloud-based systems, before the spreadsheets and the constant digital alerts, before even the invention of the selfie stick. He dreamt of simpler times, a time of straightforward thunderbolts and easy victories rather than the battle of numbers that Athena had unleashed. Opening his eyes, he saw the report still on the screen, an ominous reminder that even gods were susceptible to the frustrations of modern accounting practices. Suddenly, a new notification flashed across the screen. It was Hermes, frantically sending a series of emoji-laden messages. Help! Urgent! Aphrodite's digital goat has hacked into the celestial payroll system. Send help, and maybe a digital herder. Zeus felt his head pound. This was more than just a budget issue. It was a full-blown digital crisis, and he, the king of the gods, was hopelessly unprepared. He picked up his virtual quill and started composing a response to Athena. Dearest Athena, he typed, while I appreciate the thoroughness of your report, perhaps next time we could focus less on the intricacies of ambrosia inventory and more on the potential threat posed by hacked digital livestock. Sincerely, your increasingly stressed out father. He sent the message, a sigh of relief escaping his virtual lips. At least some things, he thought, stayed stubbornly analogous across the divide between the ancient world and the digital age. The frustration remained constant, even if the tools of chaos had changed. The next notification blinked on Zeus's screen, a fiery red icon pulsing insistently. It was Ares. Zeus braced himself. Dealing with Athena's budget reports was bad enough, but Ares's war approvals were a whole different level of chaotic. He clicked on the notification, preparing for the onslaught. The message opened to reveal a series of meticulously crafted documents, each detailing a separate virtual war campaign. Ares, it seemed, had taken his passion for combat into the digital realm, transforming his gaming console into a command center for epic cyber battles. The first document, titled Operation Trojan Horse 2.0, detailed a complex strategy involving the infiltration of a virtual city using sophisticated AI-controlled Trojan horses. The accompanying diagrams were intricate, featuring flowcharts, schematics, and even a 3D rendering of a particularly menacing-looking digital horse, its eyes glowing ominously. My Lord Zeus, the message began, written in a surprisingly formal tone that clashed sharply with the accompanying images of pixelated explosions and virtual blood splatters. I submit for your esteemed approval the strategic deployment plans for Operation Trojan Horse 2.0. As you can see, the plan involves a highly sophisticated, multi-pronged attack, utilizing a vanguard of highly trained, AI-driven cyber centaurs, and a covert operation involving the deployment of digitally enhanced Amazons. The projected casualty rate for the opposing army, the nefarious League of Pixelated Titans, is calculated at a staggering 97.2%, with minimal collateral damage, except for a few minor glitches. Approval is required to initiate the offensive. Zeus scrolled down, his eyes glazing over at the sheer volume of tactical jargon. He wasn't sure what a cyber centaur was, but he suspected it wasn't something to be trifled with. He continued through the next several documents, each more elaborate than the last. There was Operation Hydra's Revenge, which involved a digital Hydra with multiple heads, each capable of independent digital attacks. Then there was Operation Olympian Overlord, a remarkably complex game plan that involved the strategic deployment of pixelated gods and monsters in a virtual battle arena. Each document included detailed troop movements, projected casualties, resource allocation charts, and even risk assessments for various virtual terrains. One document stood out: Operation Aphrodite's Revenge, beta version. This involved a digital recreation of Aphrodite's infamous beauty contest. But instead of judging beauty, the warriors had to hack each other's profiles and steal their digital jewels, presumably virtual gems. Zeus chuckled at that one. Even in the digital realm, Aphrodite found a way to sow a little chaos. Ares' meticulousness was, to say the least, unexpected. Zeus had always imagined his son's war plans as more primal. Less spreadsheet, more sword. But here was Ares, immersed in the world of digital warfare, showcasing an attention to detail that would make any military strategist proud. He was clearly passionate about his virtual battles, using cutting-edge gaming technology and military planning software that Zeus couldn't quite comprehend. The documents were accompanied by a series of screenshots showing breathtaking virtual battles with explosions of pixelated fire, digital armies clashing, and a relentless barrage of virtual projectiles. Zeus, despite himself, was impressed. The graphics were stunningly realistic, far surpassing anything he'd ever seen in his millennia of existence. Even the digital blood splatter seemed remarkably realistic, perhaps a bit too realistic for a Sunday afternoon. Ares concluded his message with a plea. "Father, your approval is needed swiftly. The League of Pixelated Titans is on the verge of deploying their ultimate weapon, a digital kraken with a truly terrifyingly high attack rate. The fate of Mount Olympus, Virtual Edition, hangs in the balance. I await your decision with bated breath and possibly a fully loaded virtual missile launcher." Zeus leaned back in his virtual throne, a mixture of amusement and bewilderment washing over him. He considered the gravity of the situation. The fate of a digital Mount Olympus rested on his shoulders. He found himself in the unenviable position of war approver-in-chief. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, the ruler of the gods, now had to approve a war game orchestrated by his son, using a gaming console and advanced military software. It was the height of absurdity, and yet somehow it was strangely relatable. He tapped a response to Ares. "My son," he typed, "while I admire the scope and ambition of your virtual warfare strategy, particularly Operation Aphrodite's Revenge, though perhaps you should consult your sister on the details, I must remind you of our budget constraints. The cost of virtual ambrosia for your digital armies is becoming unsustainable. I therefore approve your plans, but only on the condition that you significantly reduce your virtual casualties. And for the love of all that is holy, please, turn down the volume on those digital explosions. They're giving me a headache." He hit send, a wave of relief washing over him. The approval process, while absurd, was finally over. He turned back to his inbox. The next message was from Hermes, forwarding a string of increasingly panicked emojis. Aphrodite's digital goat, it seemed, had managed to upload a virus into the celestial cloud storage. Zeus groaned inwardly. Clearly this was just another day in the office, or perhaps the digital Olympus. The chaos of the gods continued, albeit with slightly more pixelated explosions and far more digital paperwork. The job description hadn't changed much, it seemed. The tools, however, had taken a drastic shift. He wondered when the next budget report from Athena would arrive, and what new financial catastrophe it would reveal. The reign of the gods, even in its digital form, was far from peaceful, it seemed. His headache was worsening. He suspected another migraine was brewing. This time he might need more than ambrosia. He might need a serious digital detox. Hera, Queen of the Gods and self-proclaimed Chief Digital Security Officer of Mount Olympus 2.0, the cloud-based version naturally, tapped furiously at her tablet. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows were furrowed, a testament to the digital chaos unfolding before her. Zeus's online activity, it seemed, was less king of the gods and more suspicious activity alert. First, there were the emojis, an avalanche of them, a digital blizzard of winking faces, thumbs up, and fire emojis that had Hera convinced he was embroiled in some sort of divine cyber affair. She zoomed in on a particularly incriminating exchange. Zeus apparently had engaged in a lengthy emoji-based conversation with a user named Ambrosia_Babe69. The conversation consisted primarily of heart eye emojis, dancing ladies, and an excessive number of lightning bolt emojis, which Hera interpreted as a somewhat aggressive display of divine power, thinly veiled behind flirtatious emoticons. Ambrosia_Babe69, Hera muttered, her voice dripping with icy suspicion. Sounds suspiciously like a mortal with questionable intentions. Or possibly a particularly ambitious honey-based snack company trying to infiltrate the celestial market. I've alerted Hephaestus. He's developing a fail-safe protocol in case they try to use honey as a Trojan horse. She tapped another notification. This one came from Hermes, who appeared to be in a flurry of digital activity, forwarding numerous urgent messages from mortals. Most of the messages were prayer requests, ranging from the heartfelt, "Please bless my exam," to the utterly absurd, "Dear Zeus, can you get my order of artisanal goat cheese shipped faster? I'm running low." Some included pictures of burnt offerings, clearly taken with a smartphone, adding a dash of awkwardness to the already absurd situation. Absolutely no oversight regarding these messages, Hera scoffed. Hermes is becoming an unstoppable digital mailman. What would happen if a virus hit that mail system? Our entire mythological network could crash. Oh, the horror. She paused, a sudden thought striking her. Or what if he's using that access for his personal gains? Hera's suspicions weren't confined to Zeus's emoji-laden flirtations. She had also noticed a significant increase in activity on Zeus's cloud storage. He seemed to be downloading vast quantities of, well, Hera couldn't quite decipher what he was downloading. The file names were cryptic, a mix of Greek letters and indecipherable numbers. Some had titles like Project Golden Fleece 2.0 inches and the Ultimate Thunderstorm Simulator. These raised further suspicion. It could be part of an elaborate scheme to overthrow her, of course. But then again, it could simply be Zeus trying to find ways to make a boring Zoom meeting with his other divine colleagues. Or maybe, just maybe, Zeus is just a nerd who enjoys simulating thunderstorms. Hera's security protocols were thorough. She had installed a sophisticated surveillance system throughout the digital Olympus, capable of tracking every keystroke, every emoji sent, every file downloaded. She even had a special algorithm that could detect unusual patterns of divine behavior. This algorithm, named Divine Detection 3000, had already flagged Zeus's suspicious activity several times. Each alert popped up as a flashing banner on Hera's screen, complete with dramatic sound effects that she had personally programmed. These dramatic sound effects, inspired by the clang of Hephaestus's forge, were usually followed by a short but concise report on Zeus's actions. Suspicious digital activity detected, the notification chirped, its digital voice echoing in her otherwise quiet workspace. Subject, Zeus. Activity, excessive use of lightning bolt emojis during online interactions. Potential threat level, moderate to high. Recommendation, further investigation required. Hera sighed dramatically. This was exhausting. Being Queen of the Gods in the digital age was a lot like being a tech support specialist for a group of wildly unpredictable deities. The only difference was that the consequences of system failure were far more catastrophic. Instead of a blue screen of death, you got a full-blown mythological meltdown, possibly involving earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or the unleashing of some long-forgotten cosmic entity. She scrolled through her security logs. There was evidence of Aphrodite using the cloud storage to share an alarming number of selfies, all with varying degrees of digital enhancements. There were messages from Apollo that seemed to be cryptic code related to his latest musical creation. Something about a theremin solo played on a cloud server. Even Dionysus had joined the digital fray, using the system to organize a particularly raucous virtual wine-tasting party that resulted in several system errors and temporary server outages. But Zeus's activity remained the most concerning. His digital footprints were littered with clues that seemed to point towards a clandestine operation of some kind. It was frustratingly elusive, a digital enigma wrapped in a thunderbolt. She decided to employ her ultimate weapon, a targeted digital interrogation via a series of carefully crafted emojis. She started typing, a cunning smile playing on her lips. The interrogation would begin with a simple question. Why so many lightning bolts? The subsequent exchange was a masterpiece of digital diplomacy, or rather, digital intimidation. Hera peppered Zeus with question marks, followed by several ominous-looking eyes, punctuated with occasional thunderclouds and dramatic exclamation points. Zeus's replies were far less convincing. A flurry of sheepish emojis, mostly comprised of pleading faces and sweat droplets. The interrogation yielded some interesting information. It turned out that Ambrosia_Babe69 was a food blogger with a particularly enthusiastic following. Zeus, it seemed, was merely engaging in some harmless digital interaction. He had been testing a new cloud-based recipe management system, and the lightning bolts were meant to illustrate the zest of the recipes. As for the mysterious files, they were part of a new initiative to improve the accuracy of weather forecasts. His goal? To predict and control rainfall across all realms. Hera was skeptical. She had a sneaking suspicion that her husband, the king of the gods, was still hiding something. But for now she let it go. The constant digital surveillance was taking its toll. Perhaps she needed a digital detox of her own. A nice, long vacation to a remote island, far from the prying eyes of Divine Detection 3000, far from the ever-increasing stream of suspicious activity alerts. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a quiet spot where she could relax and admire the beauty of a non-digital sunset without having a system error interrupt her peace. Perhaps a good old-fashioned gossip with the other goddesses, far away from the internet, was exactly what she needed. For now, the surveillance would continue, even if it were less dramatic, less digital, and more human. The reign of the gods, even in its modernized cloud-based form, was far from dull. Hermes, the winged messenger, usually associated with swiftness and efficiency, was currently engaged in a battle of epic proportions. A battle not against monstrous titans or fearsome beasts, but against an overflowing inbox. His digital communication center, a bizarre hybrid of ancient Grecian architecture and cutting-edge technology, was a cacophony of beeping notifications, whirring servers, and the frantic rustling of paper scrolls being frantically scanned and digitized. Gone were the days of gracefully delivering messages on swift-winged steeds. Now Hermes wrestled with spam filters, battled rogue email chains, and endured the constant onslaught of digital missives, ranging from urgent requests from Zeus, mostly concerning misplaced thunderbolts or the latest gossip from Aphrodite's digital dating profile, to petty complaints from mortals about their Wi-Fi connection. His workstation, a magnificent marble desk painstakingly carved by Hephaestus, was now draped in a tangle of charging cables and littered with half-eaten energy bars, empty coffee cups, and stacks of printouts from the latest batch of prayer requests. The walls, once adorned with inspiring murals of his heroic feats, were now plastered with sticky notes bearing cryptic reminders, prioritization matrices, and hastily scribbled notes about unread messages. One particular sticky note, stuck precariously close to a framed portrait of Hermes himself, read, "Remember to unsubscribe from daily deals on ambrosia. Hera is suspicious." Again, Hermes sighed, the sound echoing through the surprisingly large and somewhat disorganized space. His divine speed was no match for the relentless flood of emails. He felt like Sisyphus, perpetually pushing a boulder, or rather a boulder-sized inbox uphill, only to have it roll back down with each new notification. He opened one email. Subject, urgent request, missing pet Pegasus. The email contained a blurry photo of a fluffy white creature resembling a particularly well-groomed poodle. "Seriously?" Hermes muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "I deliver messages to the underworld, and this is what I'm dealing with." Another notification popped up. Subject, complaint, my sacrifice was burnt to a crisp. The accompanying image showed a rather pathetic-looking burnt offering, clearly having been prepared with minimal effort and maximum enthusiasm for instant gratification. Hermes suspected this was a deliberate attempt at a social media challenge, judging by the hashtags included in the email. "I'm the messenger god, not a divine customer service representative," he exclaimed, throwing his stylus down in frustration. It bounced harmlessly off the ancient floor tiles, a testament to the high-quality craftsmanship of Hephaestus. Suddenly, his main inbox exploded with a flurry of messages from Zeus, all marked with the dreaded urgent tag. Hermes braced himself, knowing that these were likely to be far more time-consuming and complicated than the missing Pegasus or the burnt offering. The first email was a panicked message about a misplaced thunderbolt. Apparently, Zeus had mistakenly launched it into a neighboring galaxy, causing a minor celestial traffic jam and a complaint from a very disgruntled nebula. The second email was a desperate plea for assistance in locating his favorite golden slippers, which he seemed to have misplaced amidst the digital clutter of his cloud storage. And the third email, the third email was a rather lengthy and oddly passionate discussion on the merits of various cloud storage providers. Hermes groaned. He felt the familiar pang of information overload setting in. His divine senses, usually so acute, were now dulled by the relentless barrage of notifications. He found himself reaching for another energy bar, the sugar rush the only thing that could seemingly prevent a complete digital meltdown. A new notification arrived. This one was from Hera, a politely worded but highly pointed query about the lack of progress on organizing his inbox. She had attached a detailed spreadsheet with KPIs, color-coded charts, and a timeline for inbox optimization that ended with an imposingly assertive, expected completion date, yesterday. Hermes buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed. He missed the simplicity of the days when his most pressing concern was delivering a message from Apollo to Daphne, not navigating the treacherous waters of spam filters and endless email chains. The world of the gods, once a realm of magnificent battles and divine intervention, now seemed dominated by digital struggles and incessant notifications. He glanced at the stack of paper scrolls beside his computer, representing the traditional messages. They seemed almost quaint now, peaceful even. A wave of nostalgia washed over him as he recalled the uncomplicated days of simply delivering messages rather than the exhausting process of filtering, prioritizing, organizing, and responding to thousands of digital missives each day. Then a thought struck him. Why not combine the old ways with the new? Why not use technology to streamline the process of delivering the more urgent traditional messages? He could scan and digitize the scrolls, using AI to decipher the ancient Greek and prioritize them based on their content. Perhaps he could even create a digital filing system to organize the divine correspondence, avoiding the chaotic piles of paper and sticky notes. A faint glimmer of hope emerged from the digital chaos. Maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to navigate this digital deluge and restore some semblance of order to the chaotic world of divine communication. The task might be Herculean, but Hermes, ever the resourceful messenger, was ready to face the challenge. Armed with nothing but a stylus, an espresso machine, a mountain of energy bars, and a prayer to Athena for increased digital efficiency, he started to scan the first scroll, a tiny smile playing on his lips. His legendary speed, it seemed, could still find a use in the digital age after all. The future of divine communication, he decided, would be a streamlined blend of the past and the present. He had a plan, and unlike Zeus's missing slippers, this one wouldn't get lost in the digital clouds. Chapter 2: Mortal Interference. The Olympian inbox, usually a domain of thunderbolts and pronouncements of divine justice, had become a digital battlefield of a different kind. Instead of titans and monsters, Zeus faced a relentless onslaught of prayer DMs, each one prefaced with an almost comical level of apology for the audacity of disturbing the king of the gods. His usual celestial pronouncements were now interspersed with notifications from mortals seeking assistance with parking tickets, lost keys, and the ever-elusive winning lottery numbers. His divine throne room, once a majestic hall echoing with the thunder of his voice and the clash of godly debates, was now bathed in the eerie glow of a multitude of screens displaying a chaotic social media feed. Tweets, posts, and DMs scrolled endlessly, a never-ending stream of mortal anxieties and aspirations. Each notification pinged like a miniature thunderbolt, only instead of causing fear and awe, it caused a mild but persistent headache. One particularly insistent DM pleaded for a miracle lottery win. The mortal had attached a blurry selfie showing a sadly crumpled lottery ticket and a face that looked like it hadn't seen a proper night's sleep in decades. Zeus, scrolling through 1,000 similar requests, considered responding with a digital shrug emoji, but decided against it. The sheer volume of these requests, punctuated with apologetic preambles like, "I know this is a long shot, oh mighty Zeus," but was overwhelming. Another DM sought advice on a failing relationship. Apparently, Aphrodite's recent advice column hadn't been helpful, and this mortal was desperate enough to try the next most powerful deity. Attached was a lengthy narrative detailing the complexities of modern dating, including such issues as ghosting, breadcrumbing, and the perplexing phenomenon of situationships. Zeus, who himself was having relationship issues with Hera regarding her overuse of the Olympus cloud storage, felt a wave of weary sympathy. The sheer volume of these prayers, each digitally packaged with a profound expression of humility, was astonishing. These mortals weren't demanding, they were begging. They weren't expecting immediate results. They were simply hoping for a little divine intervention in their mundane lives. It was a humbling experience for the king of the gods, this relentless stream of miniature pleas for help, each one punctuated by an apologetic preface that recognized the absurdity of the situation. "My most high and mighty Zeus," one particularly lengthy DM began, "I understand that bothering the ruler of Olympus with my petty problems is a grave offense, but my dog, Sparky, has run away. He's small, fluffy, and loves bacon. If you could, in your infinite wisdom and power, aid me in locating him, I would be eternally grateful." Another message, sent with an attached picture of a particularly unruly toddler, read, "Forgive my impudence, O great Zeus, but my child refuses to eat his vegetables. Please, I implore you, bestow upon him a sudden and insatiable craving for broccoli. My wife threatens divorce if dinner time continues to be this stressful." Zeus, still dealing with his own culinary woes, Hera had once again burnt the ambrosia, could relate. He found himself oddly moved by their earnestness. These weren't demands, but humble requests. They were tiny digital echoes of the ancient practice of sacrifice and prayer, adapted to the digital age. The mortals weren't expecting immediate gratification. They simply craved a connection with the divine, a glimmer of hope in their otherwise ordinary lives. Zeus, used to the weight of the universe on his shoulders, found himself strangely touched by these simple digital supplications. The weight of his divine responsibilities, usually felt as a crushing burden, now felt strangely light compared to the sheer number of unmet needs expressed in these prayer DMs. This was a new kind of divine intervention, a low-tech, high-volume interaction between the gods and the mortals, mediated not by smoke and incense, but by flickering screens and blinking cursors. The usual channels of supplication temples, priests, sacrifices were now overshadowed by this new digital deluge of prayer DMs. And Zeus, despite the digital overload and the unending stream of notifications, couldn't help but feel a strange, unexpected kinship with these mortals, united in their shared struggle against the overwhelming complexities of modern life. He might be the king of the gods, but even he couldn't escape the anxieties and inconveniences of the digital age. Even Hera, notorious for her perfectionism and her ability to identify flaws in even the most immaculate cloud storage systems, softened slightly at the sight of so many desperate pleas. She started a new spreadsheet, not for KPIs or inbox optimization, but to track the progress of these digital prayer requests. Each prayer was assigned a unique ID, a priority level, and, to Hera's chagrin, a humorous category. The incongruity of the situation wasn't lost on either of the gods. The sheer power of Olympus, once capable of unleashing devastating storms and shaping the very fabric of reality, was now spent mostly on moderating a digital deluge of lost keys, forgotten appointments, and desperate pleas for a better internet connection. The traditional grandeur of Olympus was compromised by the relentless pings of notifications, the subtle hum of servers working overtime, and the clatter of Zeus's stylus as he attempted to respond to the thousands of messages flooding his inbox. But amidst the chaos, a strange sense of community had emerged, a digital connection between mortals and gods built not on the echoes of thunderbolts, but on the gentle hum of an overflowing inbox. It was a strange and unexpected twist to the age-old relationship between the mortals and the gods, but perhaps in its own absurd way, it was even better. The modern world had changed prayer, and perhaps the gods needed to change with it. The reign of the gods was, it seemed, not quite what it used to be. The power remained, but its application had certainly evolved. And the gods, it turned out, were just as susceptible to the overwhelming pressures of modern life as anyone else. Even Zeus, king of the gods, could not simply banish the chaos of his overflowing inbox with a flick of his wrist. The Olympian team was in full crisis mode. Athena was developing new algorithms to prioritize prayer requests based on urgency and emotional distress, a surprisingly complex task even for a goddess of wisdom. Ares, meanwhile, was developing a series of strategic responses to the most repetitive problems, such as a series of pre-written responses for lost pets and relationship issues. Even Hephaestus, despite his preoccupation with improving the structural integrity of Olympus's Wi-Fi network, had designed a series of charming miniature golden thunderbolts, which Zeus could digitally attach to especially urgent messages. The Olympian gods, the once untouchable rulers of the cosmos, were now dealing with the mundane demands of mortals with the frantic efficiency of a modern-day customer service center. This, they decided, was the new face of divine intervention, delivered not with fire and brimstone, but with the soft glow of a smartphone screen. It might not be epic, it might not be divine in the traditional sense, but it was undeniably hilariously relatable. And so Zeus, surrounded by the gentle hum of his ever-overflowing inbox, continued to navigate the bizarre landscape of divine digital intervention. His power remained, his authority was unquestioned, but the methods had changed, and the challenges were certainly unique. The once fearsome king of Olympus was now dealing with the daily frustrations of modern life, one prayer DM at a time, and frankly, he was finding it a lot more hilarious than he expected. He was, after all, also a meme-loving mortal in the modern sense. He had to keep up. This, he realized, was a new era of divinity. An era he was still trying to understand, but certainly was not missing out on. The gods were changing, and Zeus was changing with them. The digital age had brought new demands and new challenges, but also a surprising amount of unexpected amusement. It was the age of prayer DMs and quick apologies, a new era where even the gods had to adapt, or face the wrath of a truly angry mortal's internet connection. And Zeus, always ready for a challenge, had discovered a new type of battle. A battle against his digital inbox, a battle against the endless stream of requests, a battle that only he, the king of the gods, could fight. The sheer volume of prayer DMs was only part of the problem. Zeus had a new and rather perplexing challenge on his hands: digital sacrifices. For millennia, the gods had received offerings of gold, livestock, and the occasional terrified virgin, a practice Zeus, to his credit, had largely phased out. Now, however, the digital age had redefined the very concept of worship. Instead of fragrant incense and slaughtered lambs, the Olympian servers were bombarded with a relentless stream of cryptocurrency transactions and online donations. The technological altar, as Hephaestus had somewhat ironically dubbed it, was a monstrosity of gleaming chrome and blinking LEDs. It resembled a futuristic arcade machine more than anything remotely resembling a traditional altar. Zeus, looking less like the king of the gods and more like a confused retiree trying to navigate a self-checkout kiosk, stared at the screen. A bewildering array of digital currencies flashed before him. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, names that sounded more like mischievous imps than genuine tributes. "This Dogecoin," he muttered, tapping a bewildered finger on the screen. "It's a picture of a dog? Is this some sort of cosmic joke? I expected at least a decent offering of ambrosia, or perhaps a solid gold statue of myself. A dog?" Hermes, ever the eager messenger god, zipped around the altar, explaining the intricacies of blockchain technology with the same enthusiasm he once used to deliver messages from the gods to mortals. "My lord," he chirped, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous digital temple. "Each transaction represents a devoted follower's contribution to your divine upkeep. Think of it as crowdfunding Olympus 2.0. Zeus wasn't entirely convinced. The concept of crowdfunding his divine reign felt oddly undignified. He'd expected something a little more majestic. The whole thing felt rather transactional, like buying a digital get-out-of-jail-free card from a cosmic vending machine. The irony wasn't lost on him. The god who commanded the very elements, whose mere frown could summon earthquakes, was now reliant on the fluctuating value of digital currencies. The weight of the cosmos, once carried on his shoulders, now felt significantly lighter, but replaced by a different type of pressure. The anxiety of fluctuating cryptocurrency values and the occasional fear of a potential cyber attack. He had to admit, getting hacked would be a much less dignified end than a fight with Typhon. Hera, ever the pragmatist, had already established a sophisticated system for managing the digital offerings. Spreadsheets detailing transaction histories, conversion rates, and even a risk assessment for each cryptocurrency were neatly organized on her tablet. She'd even developed a color-coded system with different shades indicating the level of devotion and, more importantly, the potential tax implications. Apparently, even gods weren't exempt from IRS scrutiny in the digital age. Athena, ever the resourceful strategist, had devised a plan to use the donated cryptocurrency to upgrade Olympus's security systems. The irony wasn't lost on her either. They were using funds gifted by mortals to ensure that they themselves were secure from the very mortals who gave them. A cosmic catch-22, perfectly representative of the digital age. Ares, ever the warrior god, was using his military expertise to secure the digital temple. He'd deployed a team of cyber warriors, armed with keyboards and coding skills instead of swords and spears, to protect Olympus from digital threats. The battle for the internet was a different kind of war, but it required just as much strategy, if not more. Hephaestus, meanwhile, was busy designing a new, more aesthetically pleasing technological altar. This new version would incorporate features such as holographic projections of past sacrifices, including those particularly impressive gold statues, a digital flame that flickered according to the cryptocurrency exchange rate, and voice-activated prayer requests. Essentially, he's creating an interactive and engaging experience for both the gods and mortals involved. Even Dionysus got involved, creating a series of limited edition NFTs celebrating the highlights of Olympus's digital transformation. These tokens, depicting Zeus sipping ambrosia from a virtual mug, proved surprisingly popular among mortal collectors, generating a significant amount of Ethereum donations. This made Zeus wonder if his power resided not in the sky but in the blockchain, if Olympus had become a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO for short. The mortals, meanwhile, were adapting to the new system with surprising speed. Tutorials on how to send cryptocurrency to Olympus were circulating widely on social media. Some even created elaborate online rituals, complete with incense-scented candles and strategically placed smartphones, designed to maximize their digital offerings. A new age of devotion mediated by the digital ether. The change wasn't easy. The traditional rituals, imbued with centuries of history and symbolism, were replaced by the impersonal efficiency of digital transactions. Yet there was something compelling in the sheer absurdity of it all. Zeus, once the undisputed ruler of the heavens, was now juggling prayer DMs, managing cryptocurrency portfolios, and fielding tech support calls from Hephaestus. The gods had become tech support for the cosmos, with a divine helpline available 24/7 for all kinds of mortal issues. Despite the technological hurdles and the occasionally frustrating glitches, a new kind of connection was forming between gods and mortals. It wasn't the grand, awe-inspiring relationship of the past, but it was real, strangely relatable, and perhaps even more human in its imperfection. This new digital piety was unconventional, chaotic, and often hilarious, but it worked. It connected the immortal with the mortal through the strange, beautiful, and highly inefficient medium of the internet. Zeus, despite the complexities, found a strange comfort in this new normal. After all, what was a king of the gods without a slightly buggy, eternally overflowing inbox? He was still a god, still the ruler of Olympus, and he was certainly learning to adapt. The digital age presented many challenges, yes, but the gods were adapting. It's a new era of worship, a new era of divinity and technology all rolled into one, and it's pretty hilarious. The shift to digital sacrifices wasn't the only seismic change rocking Olympus. A far more perplexing phenomenon had emerged: the rise of the influencer gods. Ares, never one to shy away from a challenge or a fight, digital or otherwise, was the first to embrace the potential of online fame. His Instagram account, at Ares God of War, was a carefully curated blend of motivational quotes, embrace the chaos, juxtaposed with surprisingly high-quality images of meticulously arranged weaponry. He'd even started a series of workout videos, demonstrating various combat techniques with a surprisingly upbeat, almost bubbly tone. His followers, a bizarre mix of fitness enthusiasts and history buffs, grew exponentially. His approach, however, was far from subtle. One particularly ill-advised post featured him posing with a collection of vintage firearms captioned, "Preparing for the next great battle, Digital Domination God Mode Arms and Armor." This landed him in a significant amount of trouble with the newly formed Inter-Olympian Social Media Committee, IOSMC, a body established to monitor the gods' online activities and prevent any potential divine PR disasters. The IOSMC, predictably, was led by Hera, who had a spreadsheet detailing every infraction, along with a detailed risk assessment and projected damage control strategies. Athena, ever the strategist, took a far more nuanced approach. Her account, at Athena Wisdom Goddess, focused on productivity hacks, strategic planning tips, and cryptic philosophical musings. Her followers loved the intellectual challenge of deciphering her posts, which often involved ancient riddles and coded messages. She'd amassed a dedicated following of entrepreneurs, strategists, and those endlessly trying to improve their to-do lists. Athena's feed was a beautifully curated stream of minimalist aesthetics, showcasing her digital prowess. She even used AI to curate responses to comments, a perfectly efficient way to nurture a devoted follower base. Hermes, unsurprisingly, was a master of all social media platforms. His presence was everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, even that obscure platform where everyone shares their opinions on ancient pottery. His accounts, under various pseudonyms, some more divinely appropriate than others, were a whirlwind of memes, short videos, and rapid-fire updates on the goings-on of Olympus, interspersed with product placements for ambrosia smoothies and cloud-based storage solutions for divine relics. He'd managed to monetize his role as a messenger god, turning his divine speed into a highly successful influencer marketing campaign. He was everywhere, always promoting something. Hermes was a one-god marketing machine, weaving a fascinating web of social media that was both chaotic and effective. Poseidon, ever the moody god of the seas, maintained a low-key presence on Instagram, mostly posting atmospheric pictures of crashing waves and dramatic sunsets, usually featuring the occasional subtle or not-so-subtle display of his trident. His cryptic captions, often filled with sea shanties and obscure maritime metaphors, attracted a niche following of brooding artists and hopeless romantics. His style was enigmatic and captivating, and his posts did little to help the cause of his followers, but it certainly garnered a devoted fan base. Meanwhile, Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, created a highly successful lifestyle blog showcasing her perfect Grecian-inspired interior design, her collection of designer sandals, and her surprisingly adept cooking skills. Her recipes, which often included ingredients only obtainable in the magical realm of Olympus, were meticulously documented and followed by millions, leaving the mortal world wondering what kind of nectar-infused olive oil she used. Even Dionysus, god of wine and revelry, got in on the action, hosting live stream parties on Twitch, broadcasting his legendary feasts to a global audience. The live streams were characterized by chaotic energy, spilled ambrosia, impromptu musical performances, and the occasional appearance of mythical creatures who looked remarkably like very well-trained house cats. His viewers loved it. They adored his unfiltered enthusiasm, his embrace of a good time, and how unpretentious he was. The live streams were a spectacle, attracting followers from all over, and his content went viral instantly. The competition was fierce. The gods, used to commanding armies and wielding incredible power, were now vying for likes, shares, and follower counts. The metrics of divine power had fundamentally changed. The once clear hierarchy of Olympian authority was now blurred by the chaotic algorithm of social media. Zeus, meanwhile, observed this digital battle royal from his throne, a mixture of bemusement and exasperation etched on his immortal face. He was still king of the gods, but he was also beginning to realize that in the digital age, even the ruler of Olympus needed a good social media manager. The irony wasn't lost on them. These figures, once revered for their unimaginable powers and ancient legacies, were now reduced to chasing likes and comments, engaging in petty online squabbles, and carefully curating their online personas. They were reduced to the same games and strategies that mere mortals were playing. Their divine authority was diluted in the face of algorithms, engagement metrics, and the relentless pursuit of virality. The ancient grandeur had been replaced by the trivial pursuit of online fame. The majestic halls of Olympus had become a digital battleground, a competition for virtual supremacy. This digital struggle for dominance spilled over into real-world consequences. Hera, meticulously tracking the gods' social media engagement, used the data to allocate resources, influencing everything from funding for divine projects to assignments for the Olympian administrative staff. The gods' positions were no longer determined by birthright or divine prowess alone. Their social media influence now played a crucial role in determining their influence on Olympus's affairs. One particularly memorable incident involved a heated debate between Ares and Athena over the use of targeted advertising for their respective campaigns. Ares, ever the aggressive warrior, advocated for a scorched earth approach, employing all available means to maximize his reach, regardless of the ethical implications. Athena, however, preferred a more measured, targeted approach, emphasizing long-term strategic planning over short-term gains. Their arguments escalated into a full-blown digital war, complete with meme-based attacks, strategically placed sponsored posts, and a barrage of cleverly crafted clapbacks. Even the more low-key gods felt the pressure. Poseidon, though initially reluctant, found himself slowly sucked into the cycle of posting, commenting, and engaging with his followers. His normally stoic demeanor was now occasionally peppered with desperate attempts at witty hashtags and carefully chosen emojis. He even started using a filter that made his trident look more Instagram-friendly, a choice that earned the wrath of Hephaestus, who considered it a grievous insult to his godly craftsmanship. The entire situation created an odd juxtaposition: ancient, powerful gods wrestling with the complexities of modern social media. The contrast between their immense power and the relative triviality of online fame created a unique comedic effect. It underscored the absurdity of the situation and the unexpected ways in which the digital age encroached upon even the most ancient of institutions. The mortals, meanwhile, watched the divine drama unfold with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment. They were witnessing the gods descend from their lofty pedestals and become participants in the same games that mortals played every day. The gods' attempts to adapt to the culture of online influence highlighted a broader theme in this digital age: the blurring of boundaries between ancient tradition and modern technology. The very concepts of power and authority were being redefined. This digital transformation wasn't simply a technological shift. It was a cultural upheaval, changing not only how the gods interacted with mortals, but also how they perceived themselves and each other. The grand, awe-inspiring image of the gods was being slowly replaced by a more relatable and, some might argue, more human and hilarious narrative. The pantheon was becoming increasingly democratic, its power increasingly dispersed, and its effectiveness increasingly questionable. The influence of algorithms trumped that of the gods themselves. The gods were adapting, but were they evolving? Only time and the fickle whims of the internet algorithm would tell. The frantic buzzing of Hermes' newly enchanted messenger pigeon, a ludicrous contraption fitted with a tiny, blinking LED screen, startled Zeus from his contemplation of a particularly stubborn Excel spreadsheet detailing the last millennium's worth of divine interventions. The pigeon, a disgruntled-looking creature named Icarus 2.0, the original having met a rather unfortunate end involving a rogue drone and a lightning bolt misfire, chirped a digitized message: "Urgent! Digital Afterlife Symposium, attend or be forgotten." The message sent a shiver down Zeus's spine, a shiver far more potent than any mortal chill. Forgotten? The king of the gods forgotten? The concept was as absurd as it was terrifying. For millennia, Zeus had worried about the fate of his physical body, the occasional rogue titan, a nasty bout of divine indigestion. But this was new. This was the digital apocalypse. The symposium, held in the newly constructed Cloud9 Conference Center, a shimmering structure built from recycled cloud data and powered by the collective energy of Instagram likes, was a surreal spectacle. Gods, normally depicted in epic paintings with flowing robes and dramatic poses, now shuffled around in ill-fitting virtual reality headsets, their divine expressions obscured by clunky digital avatars. Hera, usually the epitome of regal composure, was visibly agitated, fiddling with her digital profile picture, a meticulously crafted image of her as a majestic lioness, which she felt lacked sufficient oomph. She was worried about her legacy, not just as the Queen of Olympus, but as a formidable influencer. Would future generations know her as the fierce, powerful goddess she was? Or would her profile be lost in the vast digital ether, a faint echo in the annals of forgotten hashtags? The thought was truly terrifying. Ares, despite his usual bluster, was strangely subdued. His @Ares God of War account had recently suffered a significant drop in engagement, a crisis he attributed to a less than successful attempt to use a deep fake video of himself battling a hydra. The hydra was remarkably realistic, but the battle choreography needed some work. The prospect of digital oblivion, the ultimate defeat, was something he found truly unnerving. Athena, ever the pragmatist, was taking a more strategic approach. She had commissioned a team of digital oracles, highly specialized AI algorithms that could predict future trends, to forecast potential threats to her digital immortality. She'd secured multiple backups of her account, employed advanced data encryption, and established a complex system of digital proxies to ensure her profile's continued existence, even if her current profile was deleted or compromised. Her concern wasn't about being forgotten, but rather about maintaining a carefully cultivated online presence, an immaculate digital legacy that could be accessed generations from now. Poseidon, in his usual grumpy mood, was complaining about the lack of decent virtual ocean views in the digital afterlife simulation. The seas were rendered in a slightly pixelated format, and the virtual trident felt surprisingly cumbersome. He argued that a proper digital depiction of his domain deserved better fidelity, preferably 8K resolution with hyper-realistic wave simulations, making the most of the latest VR technology. Hermes, meanwhile, was busy networking. He flitted between gods, offering digital immortality insurance packages, priced naturally in ambrosia, negotiating deals for cross-promotion, and whispering about various off-the-grid server farms that promised ultimate data security. His schemes were as complex and numerous as ever, creating a constant state of calculated chaos around him. Dionysus, predictably, was the only one having a genuinely good time. He'd converted a section of the conference center into a virtual bacchanalia, complete with digital wine fountains and animated satyrs. He seemed remarkably unconcerned about digital oblivion, arguing that if he couldn't party in the digital afterlife, it wasn't worth it anyway. He was more concerned about the quality of digital grapes than the longevity of his virtual profile. Even Hephaestus, usually content in his forge, was present, muttering about the inadequacy of digital tools. He'd created a virtual forge, yet even his most advanced digital tools lacked the satisfying weight of his traditional hammer, the precision of his bellows, or the delightful clang of metal on metal. He bemoaned the lack of tactile feedback and argued that no truly great digital creation could be made without the joy of working with one's hands. The god's anxieties centered around a fundamental question: what constitutes immortality in the digital age? Was it simply having a perpetually active online profile? Were likes and shares enough to guarantee some form of digital afterlife? Or was something more substantial needed? A genuine contribution to the digital landscape? The symposium offered no clear answers, leaving the gods to grapple with their collective digital mortality. The conversation soon devolved into the absurdity of the situation. Ares and Athena had a heated debate about the SEO implications of epithets: god of war versus strategic mastermind, while Hera meticulously critiqued Poseidon's choice of virtual background, a slightly blurry image of a crashing wave. Even Zeus, amidst his own anxieties about digital data loss and server outages, struggled to keep a straight face watching the chaos unfold. The discussions highlighted the cultural shift that was happening. The traditional measures of power were replaced by likes, shares, and followers. The concept of immortality seemed to hinge on digital longevity rather than feats of strength or divine authority. Even their divine arrogance couldn't shield them from the anxieties of the digital age. The gods were, in essence, just another generation caught in the endless quest for validation and immortality in the digital world. And in this respect, they were hopelessly, hilariously human. The symposium concluded without any resolutions, much to Zeus's dismay. The gods dispersed, each clutching their digital tablets, contemplating the very real threat of digital oblivion and the equally real necessity to improve their social media strategies, and wondering how to convert their divine powers into actionable marketing strategies to bolster their digital profiles. The legacy of the gods, it seemed, rested not on thunderbolts and divine intervention, but on carefully curated online personas, regular posting schedules, and a relentless pursuit of engagement. The modern struggle for immortality had indeed begun. And the gods, it turned out, were as unprepared as the rest of humanity. The symposium's chaotic energy lingered like a digital hangover, leaving Zeus with a throbbing temple and an inbox overflowing with follow-up requests from various demigods vying for attention. He tried to focus on the mountain of paperwork, or rather, the digital mountain, a towering stack of virtual documents that threatened to crush his already strained patience. But escape was impossible. Cronus, that old digital gremlin, was at it again. The first intrusion came as a gentle chime, a seemingly innocuous notification on Zeus's omnipresent tablet. Memory tag. That time you accidentally unleashed the hundred-handed giants on a particularly unruly toga party in 1247 BC. Oops. Epic fail ancient history. The accompanying image was a pixelated yet undeniably recognizable rendering of said toga party, the giants depicted as blurry, vaguely humanoid figures wreaking havoc amongst a crowd of panicked, low-resolution partygoers. Zeus groaned. He'd deleted that memory tag a dozen times, yet it persistently reappeared, a digital ghost haunting his digital Olympus. This was far from an isolated incident. Throughout the day, Cronus bombarded Zeus with increasingly annoying memory tags, each one a carefully curated dose of embarrassing or inconvenient past events. Memory tag. That awkward encounter with Medusa. Petrification, awkward silence, stone cold. The image displayed was a distorted, almost abstract rendering of a petrified Zeus, frozen in a moment of mortified stillness, his digital avatar looking remarkably like a particularly unfortunate garden gnome. Then there was memory tag, the great ambrosia spill of 456 BC. Sticky situation, cleaning crew needed, divine debacle. This one was accompanied by a grainy video clip of a digital flood of shimmering, pixelated ambrosia cascading down the virtual slopes of Olympus, causing a series of comical digital glitches. The tags were not merely visual. They often came with jarring auditory elements, such as a booming, digitized echo of Cronus's laughter that seemed to reverberate directly within Zeus's skull. Occasionally a short, looping audio clip of an ancient lyre playing an excruciatingly off-key rendition of a popular mortal pop song would punctuate the onslaught. The worst offender was undoubtedly the pop-up reminders, those ubiquitous digital interruptions that appeared at the most inconvenient times. While Zeus was attempting a crucial negotiation with Hades regarding the overdue payment for the underworld's cloud storage, a pop-up screamed, "Memory tag, the incident with the golden fleece and the rather unsavory sheep. Bad hair day, golden opportunity missed woolly memories." The accompanying picture was a crudely drawn cartoon of a very fluffy sheep, sporting a golden wig. The deal with Hades promptly fell apart, thanks to Zeus's sudden outburst of frustrated laughter. Even during his attempts at meditation, a practice he'd recently adopted to combat his ever-increasing stress levels, Cronus found ways to intrude. A tranquil waterfall scene designed for relaxation was suddenly overlaid with a pop-up. Memory tag, me eating your siblings. Family dinner, bad dad, regret nothing. The image, a cartoon depiction of a rather jovial Cronus happily devouring pixelated babies. The therapeutic serenity was shattered, replaced with a surge of exasperated frustration. These digital intrusions weren't just annoying, they were a calculated attack on Zeus's authority. Cronus, banished to the digital realm of forgotten passwords and obsolete file formats, found a loophole in the system, a backdoor that allowed him to torment his son through the very tools Zeus relied on for his reign. It was a classic case of the old guard exploiting the vulnerabilities of the new. Only this time, the weapons were not swords and spears, but pop-ups and memory tags. It became a game of digital whack-a-mole, a relentless battle against the relentless tide of intrusive reminders. Zeus tried everything, installing digital filters, adjusting his privacy settings, even attempting to engage Cronus in a direct digital negotiation, which only resulted in a barrage of sarcastic emojis and a digital rendition of the chicken dance repeatedly looping. Nothing seemed to work. Cronus, it seemed, had the tenacity of a digital virus, his mischievous spirit eternally preserved in code. Zeus's frustration mounted. The all-powerful king of the gods, reduced to a hapless user battling a swarm of digital annoyances. His divine wrath, once capable of unleashing thunderbolts and shaking the earth, was now confined to the frustrated slams of his tablet on his desk and the increasingly frequent use of the delete button, a modern-day equivalent of his mighty thunderbolt, only far less effective. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, the god who controlled the fates of mortals, now found his own fate intertwined with the capricious whims of a digital memory system, subject to the whims of his old nemesis, the digital ghost of his father. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of battling pop-ups and memory tags, Zeus stumbled upon a hidden folder, a digital vault buried deep within his tablet system. Inside, he found a series of seemingly innocuous files labeled Cronus's Legacy Project. Curious, he opened one of the files. It was a digital diary, a collection of entries detailing Cronus's meticulous plans to wreak digital havoc upon Olympus. Each entry was filled with intricate details of his methods, a chilling testament to his relentless pursuit of annoyance. The diary revealed a horrifying truth. Cronus had painstakingly collected every embarrassing, inconvenient, and slightly humiliating detail of Zeus's existence, storing them as digital artifacts and strategically deploying them as weapons. Among the many entries, one caught Zeus's eye. A note describing a highly advanced algorithm designed to analyze Zeus's daily digital activity and predict his moments of maximum vulnerability, the precise instance when a strategically placed memory tag would inflict the maximum amount of frustration. It was digital warfare, only played on the digital battlefield of memory, email, and notification pings. The discovery filled Zeus with a mix of rage and grudging admiration. Cronus, even in his digital exile, had proven to be a formidable opponent. His level of technological mastery was quite impressive, even more so than Hephaestus's, which was saying something. Zeus closed the folder, a grim determination settling in his eyes. He wouldn't simply delete the memory tags. He would outsmart Cronus, not just by blocking his digital attacks, but by turning them against him, using Cronus's own tactics against him in a digital battle of wits. The reign of the annoying memory tags, it seemed, was far from over, but the war had just escalated. The fight for digital supremacy, it turned out, was proving to be far more taxing than any battle with titans, giants, or even particularly aggressive mortals on social media. The digital age, it seemed, had its own unique brand of godly torment. Chapter 3: Technological Troubles. The crash wasn't subtle. It wasn't a gradual fade to black, a slow decline into digital oblivion. No. This was a full-blown, catastrophic system failure. The kind that left Zeus staring blankly at his tablet. The once vibrant screen, now a stark, unresponsive rectangle. Olympus, the once mighty digital fortress, lay in ruins. A digital wasteland stretching as far as the eye could see, or rather, as far as the unresponsive screen would allow. The silence that followed was deafening. Gone were the incessant pings of notifications, the jarring chimes of memory tags, the relentless buzz of incoming messages. In their place was a void, a chilling emptiness that highlighted just how much the gods, previously masters of their digital domain, had come to rely on their technology. It was a profound and slightly embarrassing revelation. Athena, usually the picture of composed efficiency, was pacing frantically, her usually crisp chiton rumpled, her perfectly styled hair askew. The spreadsheets, she wailed, her voice a blend of panic and horror. My quarterly budget reports, they're gone. The loss of access to her meticulously organized digital files seemed to threaten her very existence. She looked genuinely distraught. The mighty goddess of wisdom, reduced to a gibbering mess over missing spreadsheets, it was a sight that even the most jaded demigod would find utterly captivating. Ares, ever the warrior, attempted to maintain a semblance of calm, but his usually bellicose demeanor was slightly strained. "My war game simulations!" he roared, his voice echoing oddly in the sudden silence. "How am I supposed to strategize without my combat projections?" He was pacing the length of his digital office, his digital weaponry rendered useless, his combat scenarios lost in the ether of the system crash. His digital avatars of soldiers were all frozen in awkward poses mid-battle. His strategy meetings were canceled. Hera, usually quick to spot and flag suspicious activity, usually involving Zeus's flirtatious messages to various nymphs, was strangely subdued. My to-do list, she mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. The queen of the gods, reduced to silently mourning the loss of her digital to-do list. What an irony. It was more than a to-do list. It was a carefully curated testament to her powerful organizational prowess, now reduced to nothingness. The absence of her meticulously ordered schedule seemed to have stripped her of her usual authority. Hermes, the messenger god, usually the whirlwind of activity, flitting between divine tasks and delivering celestial messages with lightning speed, was frozen in place, his usual nimble fingers hovering uselessly over his now inert tablet. The endless stream of messages that once poured through him, connecting the divine realm with the mortal one, had been abruptly cut off. His status updates were all pending, and his message delivery rate had fallen to 0%. He looked like a lost lamb, utterly bewildered by the sudden silence. Even Hephaestus, god of the forge and technology, usually the calmest in the midst of a digital storm, was visibly shaken. He muttered about faulty wiring and corrupted servers, but his usually confident voice wavered with uncertainty. He furiously banged on his keyboard, hoping to re-establish the connection, but to no avail. His attempts at restarting the mainframe were unsuccessful. The mortals, meanwhile, were experiencing their own brand of digital distress. Prayers, once seamlessly channeled through the omnipresent digital network, became lost in the digital void. Requests for divine intervention were met with a deafening silence, a chilling absence that shattered their faith in the ever-reliable, or so they thought, divine tech support. The number of angry DMs to the Olympians skyrocketed, only to be met with silence. The sheer universal helplessness in the face of technology failure was a strangely unifying experience, transcending the usual divine squabbles and mortal anxieties. Gods and mortals alike were united in their shared vulnerability, their mutual dependence on the systems they had come to take for granted. Zeus, staring at his lifeless tablet, felt a wave of unexpected empathy wash over him. The petty squabbles over memory tags and inbox overload seemed insignificant now, overshadowed by the far greater catastrophe of a complete system crash. He suddenly understood the anxieties of the mortals who depended on digital systems for their livelihoods and communication, their daily lives disrupted and their connection to the world severed. The crash wasn't just a technological glitch. It was a stark reminder of how deeply intertwined our lives had become with technology, how dependent we had become on digital tools that had seamlessly woven themselves into the fabric of our existence. For the gods of Olympus, masters of the universe, it was a humbling experience, a lesson in digital dependence that even the mightiest thunderbolts couldn't undo. The absence of the familiar digital buzz, the silence of the once omnipresent notifications, highlighted the pervasive nature of technology, a technology they had inadvertently yet completely relied upon. The gods, in their digital downtime, found themselves strangely contemplating the fragile nature of power, both divine and technological, and the surprising comfort to be found in the shared experience of helplessness. The gods, stripped of their digital tools, found themselves reverting to their more primal forms of communication, shouting across the digital ruins of Olympus, resorting to ancient methods of delivering messages, and relying on face-to-face conversations, a technique many had forgotten in the age of rapid digital communication. The lack of digital communication was jarring. It felt oddly disorienting to be stripped of their technological crutches and forced to rely on ancient methods of communication. They had become so reliant on their digital tools that the simplicity of face-to-face conversation felt disarmingly raw and efficient. The absence of their digital interfaces allowed them to connect on a deeper level, rekindling old relationships that had been neglected in the whirlwind of digital interaction. However, the system crash did not last forever. Hephaestus, after many frustrating hours, managed to isolate and repair the system damage. The gods' digital life slowly sprang back to life. But this time, the gods returned to their screens with a new sense of appreciation, an understanding of the precariousness of their digital existence, and a newfound appreciation for the simplicity of more fundamental ways of being. They had lived through a digital apocalypse, and their lives would never be quite the same. The system shuddered back to life, a collective sigh of relief echoing through the newly reconnected digital Olympus. But the fragile peace was short-lived. A new crisis, far more petty yet equally disruptive, was brewing: the Great Emoji War. It began innocently enough, a simple misinterpretation of a thumbs-up emoji in a group chat involving Ares and Athena. Ares, interpreting the thumbs up as a sign of approval for his latest, and frankly rather questionable war strategy simulation, had begun mobilizing his digital troops. Athena, however, had merely been acknowledging receipt of a budget request, a gesture of bureaucratic efficiency, nothing more. The ensuing misunderstanding escalated with alarming speed. Ares, fueled by a potent cocktail of misinterpreted digital signals and the sheer indignity of being inadvertently undermined by a simple emoji, unleashed a barrage of fire emojis. Athena retaliated with a volley of unimpressed face emojis, followed by a series of diligently crafted spreadsheet emojis that detailed the sheer absurdity of Ares's proposed war expenditures. The conflict quickly spiraled out of control. Hermes, ever the opportunist, added fuel to the fire by sending a flurry of mischievous monkey emojis, further exacerbating the situation. He secretly enjoyed the chaos, seeing the conflict as a chance to bypass any urgent messages for the next few hours. The digital battlefield of the Olympus group chat exploded with a chaotic flurry of emojis. Angry faces, laughing emojis, pleading eyes, and even a few strategically placed heart emojis, purely for comedic effect. The divine messengers were all overloaded by the message influx. Hera, usually the voice of reason, added to the chaos by deploying a series of increasingly aggressive queen bee emojis, ostensibly aimed at Ares but also inadvertently targeting Zeus for his recent attempt at flirting with a digital nymph through the use of a winking face emoji. Zeus, caught in the crossfire, attempted to de-escalate the situation with a series of peace emojis, but his efforts were largely ignored, overshadowed by the relentless emoji onslaught. Hephaestus, ever the pragmatist, attempted to intervene, sending a series of emojis depicting tools and gears, hoping to symbolize a call for a technical solution to this digital disaster. His intervention, however, was promptly drowned out by a wave of exploding head emojis from Ares, who was clearly enjoying the digital pandemonium and the opportunity to avoid his ever-growing pile of paperwork. The mortals, meanwhile, were utterly bewildered by the spectacle. Their constant stream of prayer DMs to the gods was met with a frustrating cascade of emojis. Requests for healing were met with a series of confused, shrugging emojis. Inquiries about love were responded to with a barrage of heart emojis. And prayers for wealth yielded nothing but a steady stream of money bag emojis that eventually just became a blur of digital images. The situation quickly devolved into complete digital chaos. The once orderly structure of the Olympus system, which had struggled to cope with a simple system crash, was now buckling under the weight of thousands of emoticons, a sea of digital images crashing against the digital shores of the divine servers. Even Hephaestus, master of technology, looked utterly bewildered as his system struggled to cope with the emoji overload. The digital servers were on fire and the bandwidth was overwhelmed. The sheer volume of emojis triggered a series of unforeseen consequences. The system began to lag, notifications became delayed, messages were lost, and the entire digital infrastructure groaned under the strain. The once efficient digital communication network of Olympus, the envy of the entire cosmos, had been brought to its knees by a trivial disagreement over emoji interpretations. Zeus, observing the chaos from his overloaded tablet, felt a sense of profound irony wash over him. The gods, masters of the universe, reduced to a digital shouting match using tiny pictures. The irony was almost too much to bear. He considered using his divine powers to intervene, but decided against it. This, he thought, was a lesson they needed to learn on their own. The war continued for several hours, a nonsensical and yet strangely compelling digital spectacle. The gods, masters of their domains, now squabbling like children over digital icons. The gods, with all their power, had become slaves to their devices and their digital misunderstandings. The clash of emojis highlighted not just their dependence on technology, but also the very human capacity for miscommunication. Eventually, exhaustion set in. The endless stream of emojis began to lose their impact, the digital battlefield slowly calming down. The sheer volume of digital noise made even the most expressive emoji lose its intensity. The gods, drained, agreed to an emoji-free period of reconciliation, vowing to clarify their digital communication and to make use of proper sentences and paragraphs instead of just using emojis. The Great Emoji War, though absurd, served as a crucial turning point. It highlighted the inherent limitations and potential for misinterpretation in digital communication, and it forced the gods to reflect upon the nature of communication itself, to rediscover the value of clear, concise language and the unexpected efficiency of face-to-face interaction. They even tried to use carrier pigeons to send messages, which resulted in another, slightly less dramatic crisis. The gods' newfound appreciation for simpler forms of communication didn't last long, however. Soon, a new wave of cryptic abbreviations and internet slang flooded their digital communication channels. The gods of Olympus, it seemed, were destined to be endlessly entangled in their own digital shenanigans, constantly adapting to and often being tripped up by the ever-evolving landscape of technological communication. The digital age, for the gods, had clearly brought many unforeseen and often hilarious challenges. The next chapter was yet to be written, but it was certain to involve another crisis involving some form of modern-day digital technology. The potential for digital disaster was always just around the corner, lurking in every unread email and every unsent message. The aftermath of the Great Emoji War left Olympus in a state of exhausted quietude. The gods, humbled by their digital debacle, had sworn off emojis, at least for the time being. Zeus, however, found little solace in the relative peace. A far more serious crisis had emerged, one that threatened not just their digital communication, but their very sustenance. The nectar delivery system had been compromised. The nectar delivery system, a marvel of ancient engineering augmented by cutting-edge cloud technology, courtesy of Hephaestus, who'd taken an online course, was the lifeline of Olympus. It ensured the timely delivery of ambrosia and nectar, the gods' essential fuel for maintaining their, well, godliness. A disruption to this system meant grumpy, irritable gods, and nobody wanted that. The problem wasn't a simple technical glitch. Someone had stolen the password. The culprit had bypassed Hephaestus's supposedly impenetrable security system, a system that boasted multiple layers of authentication, including a riddle involving the labyrinth and a CAPTCHA featuring chimeras. This was no mere mortal hacker, this was a digital thief of Olympian proportions. Zeus, initially baffled, decided to handle the situation with the gravitas befitting the king of the gods. He donned his most serious digital robe, a specially designed noise-canceling headset, and settled into his throne-like ergonomic chair. Forget thunderbolts, this was a digital crime scene. He needed digital forensics. He summoned Hermes, who, despite his recent emoji-related transgressions, possessed a surprising amount of experience navigating the dark corners of the internet. Hermes, initially reluctant, the prospect of actual work after the Great Emoji War was hardly appealing, grudgingly agreed to assist, mostly because Zeus threatened to revoke his access to the divine Netflix account. Their investigation began with the nectar delivery logs, a seemingly endless scroll of digital records showing the exact time, date, and location of every nectar drop. The logs were presented in a way only Hephaestus could create, a dizzying combination of cryptic algorithms and what looked like hieroglyphic shorthand from an ancient technological civilization. Even Hermes was overwhelmed, and only his considerable experience with various online scams and black markets saved him from utter despair. Hermes quickly discovered a suspicious pattern. A series of deliveries had been rerouted to a location that registered only as unknown, while the timestamps showed almost impossibly fast delivery speed. It had to be some kind of data masking, a clever means to conceal the true location and even obfuscate the amount of the nectar. Zeus, recalling his years of studying human behavior, mostly from observing mortal sitcoms, hypothesized that the thief might have left a digital trail. They started by examining the system's access logs. There, amidst a sea of legitimate accesses, they found it, an unfamiliar IP address. It had only been active for a short time, attempting to access the nectar system using multiple password combinations. Impressive, Zeus admitted. A sophisticated brute force attack. They seem to have access to sophisticated means to disguise their origins. It's almost as if they are using a type of advanced encryption or even quantum-based computing. Our tech is not up to that standard. We may need to hire a consultant. Hermes, ever the pragmatist, suggested they simply ask Hephaestus to improve the security system. Improving a system that has already been compromised is not necessarily a good approach to take. This is more likely a problem of a backdoor access than a compromised security system. We need to find out who had the capability to install such backdoors into the system. Maybe they created it during the development stage of the system, Zeus replied. Following the IP address led them down a rabbit hole of digital breadcrumbs. It bounced across several proxy servers, making the tracing a rather complicated task. But with Hermes' digital sleuthing skills and Zeus's surprisingly astute understanding of digital security protocols, picked up from watching countless crime documentaries, they were able to track the IP address to a seemingly mundane location, a small, unassuming server farm in Nevada. The server farm turned out to be registered under the name of Cloud9 Solutions, a company that specialized in providing cloud services to, well, everyone and anyone. The anonymity offered by the company immediately made it a prime suspect. The next step was infiltrating Cloud9 Solutions' system, a task that proved less challenging than they'd anticipated. The company's security was woefully inadequate, a fact that prompted Zeus to consider launching a divine audit of their practices. He quickly found that access to the system could be gained through various methods, including brute forcing phishing and through the exploitation of a few vulnerabilities that were evident even to an amateur hacker. Once inside, they discovered the culprit, a disgruntled intern, a mortal named Kevin who had been tasked with cleaning out Hephaestus's old code. In a fit of boredom and resentment, Kevin, having found a forgotten backdoor access point in the old code, had stumbled upon the Nectar system password. Initially, it was just a prank. It started as a joke, replacing the Nectar deliveries with images of various cats, which, according to Hermes, caused an internal argument amongst the gods regarding the cuteness levels and the best breeds. But Kevin, consumed by the thrill of his unauthorized access, had taken things too far. Zeus, surprisingly understanding, decided against a divine punishment. Instead, he ordered Kevin to be enrolled in a digital ethics course, and also gave him an internship at Olympus under the supervision of Hephaestus, who, after the debacle, promised to improve his coding practices. The gods, after a collective sigh of relief, resumed their nectar consumption and continued their digital shenanigans, forever bound to the whims of modern technology. The nectar flowed freely once more, albeit with a much improved, if slightly over-engineered security system. The lesson was clear. Even the gods couldn't escape the absurdities of the digital age. The resolution of the nectar crisis brought a brief respite, a digital calm before the next storm. This time, the storm wasn't a disgruntled intern or a rogue emoji. It was something far more pervasive, something that touched every aspect of Olympian life, from the daily dispensing of ambrosia to the scheduling of divine meetings, the Wi-Fi. Olympus, despite its technological advancements courtesy of Hephaestus, suffered from a chronic case of spotty internet connectivity. The signal was as fickle as Hera's moods, wavering between glorious high-speed downloads and frustrating buffering that could make even the most patient god rage. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a crisis. Athena couldn't access her spreadsheets. Ares couldn't stream his war documentaries, much to his dismay. And Hermes, horror of horrors, couldn't update his social media presence. Zeus, after enduring a particularly agonizing video call with a particularly demanding mortal CEO, who demanded a divine intervention to fix a critical bug in his company's software, declared a divine quest, the search for the perfect Wi-Fi signal. "We shall traverse the cosmos," he declared, his voice echoing across the newly stabilized Nectar delivery network, "and discover a realm of perfect connectivity. No more buffering, no more dropped calls. We shall conquer the digital void." The quest began naturally with a consultation. Hephaestus, ever the pragmatist, suggested a simple solution, a larger router. However, Zeus deemed this too pedestrian for a god of his stature. He craved something epic, something that would resonate through the annals of Olympian history, or at least through his next Instagram post. Their first stop was Asgard, home of the Norse gods. Thor, ever boisterous, boasted of their lightning-fast Wi-Fi, powered by the very storms he commanded. Unfortunately, their connection, while undeniably fast, was hopelessly unreliable. 1 minute, they were streaming Valhalla's digital history channel. The next, they were plunged into a digital blackout caused by Thor's latest lightning-related prank. Undeterred, the Olympians moved on. They consulted the Egyptian gods, who used advanced hieroglyphic-based technology that was shockingly slow, even by ancient standards. Their connection was so unstable that Ra's attempt to show them a slideshow of his sun god selfies was met with constant loading errors. Next, they attempted to harness the power of the mythical internet of Avalon, rumored to be woven from the threads of starlight and magic. The journey involved navigating enchanted forests and fending off digital gremlins, creatures that only appeared when your Wi-Fi was particularly weak and had no apparent connection to their physical realm. Despite their best efforts, however, the Internet of Avalon turned out to be a digital mirage. The connection, while aesthetically pleasing, was unbelievably laggy. The connection was so slow that if they tried to download a single digital file, it would take longer than the time it took for the gods to travel to that magical land. Their pilgrimage continued, taking them to the hidden underwater kingdom of Atlantis, where Poseidon offered them a glimpse of their subaquatic fiber optic network, rumored to be powered by deep-sea currents. Despite the potential of this seemingly high-tech solution, they were hampered by a number of challenges. First, the physical distance to the infrastructure was extremely high. Second, the network was surprisingly prone to disruptions caused by migrating schools of fish. Finally, the signal strength was extremely low despite the use of advanced underwater cabling technology and extremely advanced signal amplification. Frustration mounted. Athena, ever practical, suggested a drastic measure, creating their own Wi-Fi network, independent of any external interference. This proved to be a surprisingly difficult task. Hephaestus, despite his skills, found himself battling an army of cryptic error messages and incompatible protocols. The project required the combined efforts of all the gods, each contributing their unique skills. Ares provided security by launching simulated DDoS attacks on their own network, while Hera painstakingly reviewed every line of code, meticulously correcting even the slightest imperfection. Hermes, of course, used the opportunity to spam the network with promotional messages for his new line of divine messenger bags. After weeks of relentless toil, the network was finally operational. But even their self-sufficient network wasn't perfect. The signal was still weak in certain areas of Olympus, resulting in frustrating digital dead zones. This, they found out, was a result of Zeus's insistence on a network named ZeusNet, which kept clashing with nearby networks that used the same name. It seemed they were still susceptible to the complexities of the digital world. In a moment of brilliant insight, Hermes suggested a less technologically ambitious approach. He proposed a signal-boosting ritual involving the collective chanting of ancient incantations combined with the precise alignment of certain constellations and the careful placement of several strategically positioned golden apples. The ritual was both ridiculously complex and utterly absurd, but to their surprise, it actually worked. The Wi-Fi signal, though not perfect, was significantly stronger and more stable. The quest for the perfect Wi-Fi signal, therefore, ended not with a grand technological triumph, but with a humorous blend of ancient magic and modern technology. The gods learned a valuable lesson. Even in the realm of the gods, perfect connectivity remained an elusive dream, a constant reminder of the whimsical, often frustrating nature of the digital age. They also learned the value of using more descriptive network names to avoid the embarrassment of signal interference. The quest, however, was not entirely fruitless. The experience led to the creation of a slightly improved, albeit chaotically implemented system that could handle the daily demands of running a modern, or rather, ancient, godly administration. They even started a podcast called Godly Wi-Fi Woes that surprisingly became quite popular among mortals, further highlighting the universal nature of their digital struggles. The gods, after all, were just as susceptible to the frustrations of bad Wi-Fi as the rest of the digital world. The improved, albeit chaotically implemented Wi-Fi system held for a blissful week. Then the deluge hit. Not a literal deluge, thankfully. Olympus's drainage system, courtesy of Poseidon, was remarkably efficient, even if its plumbing sometimes involved sentient seahorses. No, this was a digital deluge, a torrent of data threatening to overwhelm and erase everything. It started subtly, a few glitches here and there. Athena's meticulously organized spreadsheet suddenly displayed random characters, resembling ancient Sumerian curses more than financial reports. Ares's war documentaries began to exhibit jarring transitions, jumping from a brutal siege to a kitten video, then back to a graphic display of tactical maneuvers involving miniature terracotta warriors. Hermes's social media feed became a chaotic mess of conflicting updates, showing him simultaneously attending a philosophical debate with Socrates, attending a rave in the underworld, and conducting a diplomatic mission to the Amazonian tribe. Then came the warnings. Red error messages flashed across every screen, ominous proclamations of impending doom. The system was overloaded, the backup system was failing, and crucial data was at risk of being lost forever. Panic, a feeling not often associated with immortal beings, gripped Olympus. Zeus, in his usual calm yet slightly panicked demeanor, slammed his fist on his cloud-based desk, which promptly disappeared into the digital ether, only to reappear a moment later, slightly askew.
"By the beard of Cronus!" he bellowed.
"We're losing everything." The ensuing chaos was interesting. Athena, normally the epitome of composure, was frantically typing, her fingers flying across her holographic keyboard, muttering incantations that sounded suspiciously like ancient database commands. Ares, believing this to be a new form of digital warfare, started yelling orders at the system in a language that sounded suspiciously like Klingon. Hera, however, was not screaming. She simply stared, eyes blazing at her rapidly shrinking digital photo album of her various ill-fated attempts at pottery classes, her usually serene face contorted into an expression that could curdle milk at 50 paces. Hermes, ever opportunistic, attempted to capitalize on the crisis. He began selling digital backup amulets, promising they could protect data from the deluge. These were nothing more than intricately designed JPEGs, and their effectiveness was demonstrably zero. Nevertheless, he made a tidy profit from the panicked gods who were willing to pay anything for a glimmer of hope in their digital doom. Hephaestus, despite his usual expertise, found himself overwhelmed. His attempts to fix the problem resulted in even more error messages, creating a digital feedback loop that threatened to crash the entire system. He found himself surrounded by a mountain of discarded circuit boards, muttering curses under his breath that were far more colorful than any of his previous creations. The mortal world naturally was largely unaware of the digital apocalypse unfolding on Mount Olympus. Only a few tech-savvy mortals, constantly monitoring the internet for any sign of divine intervention, noticed the sporadic outages and the erratic behavior of their social media feeds. The lack of divine assistance on social media caused a minor panic of its own, triggering the creation of a flurry of "Where Are the Gods" trending hashtags and several self-help groups designed to help mortals cope with the absence of timely heavenly intervention. The situation grew increasingly critical. The gods' collective digital identities, stored in a secure, or so they thought, cloud server, were on the verge of obliteration. Their millennia-old history, their divine achievements, their embarrassing selfie collection, all were on the brink of digital annihilation. The thought of losing their digital presence sparked a level of panic among the deities that hadn't been seen since the time that Hades mistakenly opened a portal leading to the realm of particularly aggressive digital gnomes. In a desperate attempt to save their digital selves, the gods began a frantic data backup operation. Athena created a system of automated backups, while Hephaestus, fueled by caffeine-laced nectar, worked tirelessly to create redundant systems. Ares, surprisingly, offered some assistance, deploying his considerable military resources to safeguard the backup systems from digital attacks. Even Hera, after a particularly brutal digital data purge that removed several years' worth of her photographic history, contributed to the effort. The result was a less than organized yet surprisingly effective series of backup locations involving several remote cloud servers and a series of enchanted hard drives hidden within the hollowed-out limbs of a particularly ancient oak tree. The backup process was fraught with challenges. The gods were struggling to learn new software, struggling to cope with digital jargon that they did not understand, and their backup progress was constantly interrupted by the digital gremlins they met in their earlier Wi-Fi quest. Despite these obstacles, they finally managed to copy all their critical files and data. The digital gremlins, however, were still a threat, which threatened their entire digital operation. The gods, in a last-ditch effort to protect their data, decided to take one last action: invoke the power of ancient magic to protect their data. The ritual involved intricate hand gestures, the chanting of cryptic incantations, and the sacrifice of several technologically advanced smartphones to appease the gods of the internet. The process was long and exhausting, but in the end they were successful. The digital gremlins vanished into the digital ether, leaving the gods to their hard-earned rest. The digital deluge eventually subsided, leaving the gods exhausted but with their data intact. The experience, however, left a lasting impression. They learned a valuable lesson about the importance of regular backups, the unpredictability of technology, and the unexpected effectiveness of ancient magic in solving modern problems. They also learned that the chaos of the modern digital world could rival even the most chaotic of mythical battles. And, of course, they learned to appreciate their digital possessions and to ensure they would never run into such peril again. Their newly created podcast, Godly Wi-Fi Woes, expanded its topics to include the existential dread of data loss, further solidifying its position as the most surprisingly popular podcast in both mortal and divine realms. Chapter 4: Divine Disconnect. The decision, born from a particularly aggressive spam email from a particularly insistent mortal named Chad, who claimed to have discovered the secret to eternal youth through the consumption of copious amounts of kale smoothies, solidified in Zeus's mind with the force of a thunderbolt. He would unplug. He would disconnect. He would, in short, undertake a digital detox. The irony wasn't lost on him. The king of the gods, the wielder of lightning, the master of the heavens, succumbing to the tyranny of notifications. He envisioned himself a majestic figure in flowing robes, not battling titans, but wrestling with a malfunctioning smart fridge. The thought was, to put it mildly, disheartening. His first step was the most difficult: telling the other gods. Athena, ever practical, presented a detailed spreadsheet outlining the potential risks of a complete digital detox, including, but not limited to, decreased productivity, potential loss of crucial information, like, say, the password to the celestial Wi-Fi router, and a noticeable decline in the number of prayer DMs received. She even factored in the potential for a surge in mortal anxieties due to the lack of timely divine intervention on their various social media platforms. Ares, predictably, saw the situation as a strategic retreat, suggesting a tactical unplugging strategy that involved a controlled shutdown of selected systems while maintaining a constant online presence via strategically placed drones equipped with high-powered Wi-Fi boosters. Naturally, this involved detailed simulations, war games, and several near-miss accidents involving a carelessly deployed drone, and Hera's prized collection of vintage Olympian pottery. Hermes, ever the opportunist, saw the potential for a brand new line of digital detox merchandise. Specifically, hand-carved wooden tablets with stylus pens and beautifully hand-painted offline status indicators for the gods' digital profiles. His sales pitch, which included an elaborate dance involving several strategically placed flaming torches and a surprisingly effective interpretive dance depicting the struggles of modern digital life, resulted in a series of pre-orders which far exceeded even his most optimistic projections. Hera, predictably, had mixed feelings. While secretly relieved by the prospect of a break from the constant stream of Zeus's digital mishaps, mostly involving accidental likes on inappropriate posts, she was wary of Zeus spending too much time away from his digital duties. She devised a cunning plan to ensure his digital absence didn't disrupt her carefully curated social media image, which involved posting a series of carefully staged photos depicting Zeus bravely facing a horde of aggressive digital gremlins with only a single enchanted wooden tablet to defend himself. The photos, featuring remarkably impressive lighting and special effects, thanks to Hephaestus's surprisingly effective off-grid lighting equipment, garnered a tremendous response, creating a whole new level of respect and reverence among the gods and mortals. Even Hephaestus, the master of technology, was intrigued by Zeus's plan. He had devised a system of intricate clockwork mechanisms that would temporarily disconnect Olympus from the internet, ensuring a complete digital blackout. However, the system required careful calibration, involving a complex series of gears, springs, and levers, all lubricated with a highly volatile mixture of nectar and oil that nearly caused a catastrophic fire in the forge before the system was ready for activation. Finally, with the help of some remarkably potent ambrosia-laced tranquilizers that temporarily incapacitated the more vocal members of the pantheon, Zeus managed to implement his digital detox. He left Olympus, exchanging the sterile glow of his cloud-based desk for the earthy scent of pine and the soothing sound of running water. He chose Mount Ida, a location steeped in ancient mythology, for his retreat. He traded his holographic keyboard for a simple quill and parchment, his endless inbox for the boundless expanse of the sky. The silence, at first unsettling, gradually became a source of profound peace. He spent his days hiking among the trees, his nights gazing at the constellations, feeling a connection to the world that had been lost in the relentless barrage of notifications. The contrast between his digital and unplugged lives was stark. In Olympus, the air buzzed with the constant hum of technological activity, the sounds of notifications a persistent, irritating background noise. On Mount Ida, the sounds of nature prevailed, the rustle of leaves, the songs of birds, the gentle murmur of the wind. He rediscovered the simple joys of life, the taste of freshly picked berries, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the satisfaction of writing poetry under the open sky. He even started a daily routine of early morning exercises that surprisingly increased his focus, improving his problem-solving skills both in the digital and analog world. He found inspiration in nature, creating vivid, poetic descriptions of the landscapes, and sharing those poetic descriptions as his very first poetry posts on his new and, ironically, analog-based social media account. The response was unexpected. Mortals were fascinated by these new, authentic posts. The lack of perfectly filtered photos or witty hashtags only made these posts more appealing and human-like. Yet the lure of the digital world persisted. He occasionally caught himself reaching for his non-existent phone, checking for messages that weren't there. He found himself instinctively reaching out for his digital pen only to remember that the quill and parchment were his only tools for his poetic explorations. The withdrawal symptoms, though not physically debilitating, were oddly persistent. One night, stargazing from a secluded spot high on the mountain, he experienced a sudden moment of clarity. The digital world, with all its complexity and chaos, was just a tool. It wasn't inherently good or bad, but its value depended entirely on how it was used. His digital detox hadn't been about rejecting technology, but about regaining control over it. His return to Olympus was marked by a new sense of purpose. He implemented strict limits on his digital usage, scheduling specific times for checking emails and social media. He encouraged the other gods to do the same, leading to an unexpected reduction in workplace stress and a surprising increase in overall productivity. Even Hera started incorporating scheduled digital detox time into her personal calendar, a testament to the quiet power of Zeus's newly found analog lifestyle. He created a new system, a balanced approach that combined the efficiency of technology with the calm and focus of an unplugged life. He discovered that a healthy digital life wasn't about avoiding technology, but establishing a balance. The lesson, he realized, extended far beyond the halls of Olympus. It was a lesson for the entire universe, a message for all beings, both mortal and divine, that life needed both the digital and the analog. The balanced lifestyle was a harmonious one. His renewed appreciation for the simple things extended beyond the beauty of Mount Ida's landscape. He found himself yearning for genuine connection, a type of interaction that his digital existence had subtly eroded. The carefully curated images and hastily typed messages couldn't replicate the warmth of a shared laugh, the depth of a heartfelt conversation, or the subtle nuances of human interaction lost in the translation of emojis. He missed the give and take, the shared silences, the spontaneous moments that only arose from face-to-face encounters. His first foray back into the world of personal interactions was tentative. He started with the nymphs, creatures of nature who were remarkably unaffected by the digital revolution. Their presence was comforting, their conversations filled with the earthy scent of forest and wildflowers, a far cry from the sterile atmosphere of his digital workspace. They didn't bombard him with requests, demands, or notifications. Their presence was a balm to his digitally frayed nerves. Their laughter echoed through the glades, a melody far more pleasing than the incessant dinging of his defunct notifications. He learned to listen, truly listen, without the distraction of a constantly buzzing phone. He heard their stories, their concerns, their joys, and found himself captivated by the simple sincerity of their lives. Their conversations were unhurried, filled with rich details that a hastily typed message could never convey. He began to understand the profound difference between merely exchanging information and forging a connection. He learned that true communication was not simply a transaction, but a shared experience. He spent hours exchanging stories, jokes, and even life advice with the nymphs, sharing his anxieties over the chaotic world he had left behind. He even confessed his anxieties about returning to the noisy chaos of Olympus, only to be met with surprising understanding and even some gentle amusement. His next step was a visit to a nearby village. He wasn't sure what to expect. Would mortals be as engrossed in their digital devices as the gods? Would they even recognize him, the king of the gods, without his usual retinue of digital assistants? He approached the village cautiously, his divine presence disguised by a simple shepherd's garb. The reality surprised him. While many carried devices, their interactions weren't solely defined by them. He witnessed conversations unfolding in the town square, lively exchanges filled with laughter and shared experiences. He saw children playing, their faces lit with unadulterated joy, their interactions free from the constraints of digital mediation. He observed families sharing meals, their conversations a tapestry woven with shared memories and inside jokes. The subtle shift in human interaction was noticeable. The focus had changed from the phone to the person sitting next to them, highlighting the unspoken communication of simple human connection. He struck up a conversation with an elderly woman who was tending to her vegetable garden. He asked about her life, her experiences, her dreams. She spoke with an eloquence that surprised him, her words a rich tapestry of experience, wisdom, and deep-seated affection for her community. It was a far cry from the brief, often impersonal interactions he experienced through the digital world. The encounter lasted for hours, and the simple act of listening, the ability to understand and connect through her story, provided a sense of contentment he had never known. He spent the following days immersing himself in village life. He participated in community events, shared stories with the locals, and witnessed the strength of human connection built over time and shared experiences. He helped harvest crops, listened to songs, and learned simple crafts. He learned the local dialect and the nuances of their culture and discovered a way to connect with mortals on a human level, understanding their lives through their stories and experiences. He even helped build a new well for the village, a collective effort which strengthened the bonds between the villagers and also the bond between Zeus and these ordinary mortals. One evening, gathered around a crackling bonfire with the villagers, Zeus felt a sense of belonging he'd not experienced in centuries. The story shared, the laughter echoing through the night, the warmth of the fire, it was a profound contrast to the isolation he often felt, even amongst the gods in the digital world. The genuine connection forged through shared experiences filled a void within him, making him appreciate the true importance of human interaction. The laughter was far more satisfying than any digital notification, the warmth of a shared experience far more significant than any digital like or comment. The villagers, oblivious to his true identity, accepted him simply as one of their own. He was Zeus, king of the gods, but in this moment he was simply a friend, a neighbor, a participant in the shared experience of human community. He began to understand the subtle art of nonverbal communication, the power of a shared gaze, a gentle touch, a warm smile. He realized that true connection was not merely about transmitting information, but about sharing emotions, experiences, and vulnerabilities. The simple act of being present, fully present, without the distraction of digital notifications, transformed his interactions. His heart filled with a profound sense of joy, the kind of happiness that could not be captured in a photograph or expressed with an emoji. His time in the village became a pivotal moment in his life. It wasn't just a break from technology, it was a rediscovery of humanity, a reminder of the profound joy and richness of face-to-face communication. He returned to Olympus a changed god, his perspective subtly shifted, his understanding of human interaction profoundly enhanced. He carried with him the warmth of human connection, a newfound appreciation for genuine interaction, and a profound understanding of the human element, a stark contrast to the sterile world of digital communication. He vowed to use his newfound wisdom not just in his interactions with the other gods, but in how Olympus itself interacted with humanity. He knew his newfound appreciation for analog interactions and personal connections would prove to be essential to the effective and responsible administration of the gods' relationship with humanity. His transformation, however, wasn't complete. The pull of Olympus, even in its digitally chaotic state, was strong. He returned to his cloud-based throne room, still feeling the lingering warmth of the village bonfire, the echo of genuine laughter. The transition was jarring. The incessant pinging of notifications, the flashing screens, the constant demands. It was an assault on his newly found peace. He felt a pang of longing for the simplicity of the village, the quiet beauty of the natural world, the genuine connections forged in shared experiences. He tried to implement some of his newfound wisdom. He attempted to schedule analog hours, periods dedicated to face-to-face interactions with the other gods, free from the distractions of digital communication. The results were mixed. Athena, ever the pragmatist, found the idea inefficient. Ares, perpetually craving conflict, interpreted it as a sign of weakness. Hera, suspicious of anything that seemed remotely peaceful, simply declared it a waste of divine time. Only Hermes, ever adaptable, seemed to grasp the concept, albeit with his characteristic mischievous twist. He proposed a series of digital detox retreats to a secluded island, which naturally involved elaborate technological gadgets designed to enhance the disconnection experience. Zeus, resigned to the absurdity of it all, merely sighed and accepted the inevitability of divinely ordained irony. It was during this period of adjustment that the oracle returned, not with a flash of lightning and a booming voice, but with a quiet, almost unassuming presence. She materialized not in a technologically enhanced virtual reality simulation, as some had speculated, nor in a cleverly disguised email, but in the most unexpectedly traditional way, in person. She appeared on the outskirts of Olympus, her presence marked not by digital notifications or a flurry of activity, but by a simple, almost imperceptible shift in the energy of the mountain itself. She was strikingly different from his memory. Gone was the opulent temple, replaced by a small, unassuming hut constructed from natural materials. No gleaming screens or complex algorithms were in evidence, only the simple tools of her ancient craft: smooth stones, carefully crafted staffs, and a collection of dried herbs that filled the air with a comforting, earthy aroma. She possessed the wisdom of centuries, gleaned not from the internet's vast database, but from generations of observation and deep reflection. Zeus, initially wary, approached her with caution. He had become accustomed to communicating via cryptic emojis and hastily typed messages. Direct, unfiltered interaction felt strangely unfamiliar, almost unnerving. He began, as he always did, by reaching for his tablet to quickly jot down some key questions, only to find himself fumbling with the device in his disoriented state, the simple act now feeling cumbersome and intrusive. The oracle smiled, a knowing, gentle smile that seemed to penetrate the digital noise that still clung to him like a persistent cloud. "The answers you seek," she began, her voice calm and resonant, "are not found in the swirling currents of information, but in the stillness of your own heart." Her words cut through the layers of technological distractions, piercing through the noise and clutter that had become the norm. She didn't offer her counsel through algorithms or data-driven projections. Instead, she used traditional methods, studying the patterns in the flames of a hearth fire, interpreting the flight of birds, analyzing the placement of scattered stones. She observed Zeus's demeanor, his posture, his subtle anxieties, and understood his predicament far better than any AI could ever hope to. The process was slow, deliberate, free from the urgency of instant messaging or the need for immediate responses. There was a sacred silence that enveloped them, a profound contrast to the digital cacophony of Olympus. It was an experience that allowed Zeus to confront his inner turmoil, his anxieties, and his fears, free from the relentless barrage of digital distractions that had previously defined his existence. Her advice was remarkably practical, even amidst its ancient wisdom. It wasn't a list of directives or action points, but a series of carefully chosen words that served to unlock his own problem-solving abilities. She helped him reframe his challenges, showing him how to approach them with a sense of calm and perspective that had been lost in the whirlwind of digital demands. She encouraged him to prioritize what truly mattered, to focus on building genuine connections, and to find joy in the simplest of things. She reminded him that leadership wasn't about control, but about cultivating a sense of shared purpose. She emphasized the importance of listening, truly listening, without the interruption of notifications or the need for instant replies. She highlighted the value of observing human interactions in their purest form, understanding the nuances of nonverbal communication, and the importance of physical presence in fostering trust and collaboration. She suggested that he create physical spaces within Olympus, free from technology, where the gods could engage in meaningful conversations and build stronger relationships. Her words struck a chord, resonating deeply within Zeus's soul. He realized that the technology, while useful, had become a crutch, a distraction that obscured the essence of genuine connection and clear communication. He started to implement her advice, starting small. He initiated regular technology-free meetings with Athena, finding that their discussions were far more productive and fulfilling without the interruption of emails and Slack notifications. He even organized a series of informal gatherings for the gods, where they could simply share stories and engage in friendly banter away from their digital devices. He started using a traditional messenger, albeit an unusually fast one, and only for really important things. Ares, surprisingly, showed a newfound appreciation for the calm that followed technology-free meetings. He still had a penchant for conflict, but his outbursts became less frequent and less aggressive. Hera remained skeptical, but even she started to notice a tangible shift in the atmosphere of Olympus. It was a calmer, more cohesive environment, free from the chaos of digital overload. The change, however subtle, was significant. The oracle's return wasn't simply a return to ancient methods. It was a reminder of the fundamental principles of effective leadership and meaningful human interaction. It was a powerful lesson in the art of disconnecting to better connect, a testament to the enduring power of human connection in an increasingly digital world. Zeus, forever changed by his experiences in the village and his encounter with the oracle, began to lead Olympus with a newfound wisdom, understanding that the true power of a god resided not in technological dominance, but in fostering genuine relationships, inspiring genuine connections, and understanding the human element that his digital life had almost completely erased. The return of the oracle was, in a way, the return to a healthier and more harmonious balance between the divine and the human, between the ancient and the modern. The gods, guided by the ancient wisdom and Zeus's newfound perspective, slowly began to reconnect with the mortal world, not through the cold efficiency of algorithms and notifications, but through genuine understanding and a renewed appreciation for the simple, unfiltered beauty of human interaction. The age of the digital deity was slowly but surely giving way to a new era, one characterized by authentic connection and the enduring wisdom of the past. This newfound equilibrium wasn't achieved overnight. It required a delicate dance between embracing the efficiency of the digital age and preserving the essence of traditional divine interaction. Zeus, ever the pragmatic leader, recognized that simply discarding technology wasn't feasible. Olympus, in its current form, relied heavily on its cloud-based infrastructure. Discarding it would be akin to dismantling the entire structure of their divine operations, a task as monumental as herding 1,000 enraged minotaurs. Instead, he implemented a series of carefully considered strategies, aiming to create a synergy between the old and the new. He began by redesigning the Olympus communication system. The constant barrage of notifications, once a source of endless frustration, was reorganized. Urgent messages were clearly distinguished from routine updates, minimizing unnecessary disruptions. He introduced a divine downtime feature, scheduling specific periods during which all notifications were suspended, allowing for focused work and genuine interaction. This wasn't just a digital detox, it was a strategic recalibration of their workflow. The budget reports from Athena, for instance, were no longer delivered as a flurry of frantic emails. They were now presented in a concise, well-organized format during scheduled budget meetings, where Athena could explain her proposals in detail, addressing Zeus's concerns and questions in a face-to-face setting. Ares's requests for war approvals followed a similar pattern. He was required to submit a comprehensive strategic briefing outlining his objectives and potential consequences. This helped minimize impulsive actions and allowed for more thoughtful consideration of the implications of his plans. Even Hera's suspicious activity flags were streamlined. A more efficient system of alerts was implemented, prioritizing genuine threats and filtering out false positives. A process supervised by Hephaestus, who cleverly integrated a self-learning algorithm that gradually reduced the number of false alerts over time. Zeus also took proactive steps to integrate technology into the realm of divine worship and offerings. He commissioned Hephaestus to develop a state-of-the-art virtual temple where mortals could pay their respects and leave their offerings in a digital space. This wasn't intended to replace the traditional practice of physical worship. Rather, it was a way to expand accessibility and accommodate the needs of a global community. The virtual temple cleverly combined cutting-edge technology with traditional elements. Virtual representations of the temple's architecture provided an awe-inspiring backdrop. Mortals could leave digital offerings, which were converted into real-world actions like planting trees or supporting local charities, a move that impressed even the environmentally cautious nymphs. The transformation wasn't confined to Olympus, it extended to Zeus's interactions with the mortal world. He established a dedicated team of divine messengers, equipped with modern communication technology, but trained in the art of empathetic and respectful communication. These messengers didn't just deliver messages, they served as conduits between the divine and the mortal realms, fostering genuine understanding and empathy. The system was so effective it reduced the number of urgent prayer DMs by a significant margin. The success of this new approach was evident in the revitalized spirit of Olympus. The gods, once burdened by a constant stream of digital distractions, found a new sense of purpose and connection. The regular technology-free meetings, initially met with resistance, became valued opportunities for meaningful interaction and collaborative problem-solving. Even Ares started to show an unexpected interest in philosophical discussions, occasionally suggesting that conflict resolution may, in certain circumstances, be more effective than outright warfare. This wasn't a return to the pre-digital era, but a sophisticated blend of ancient wisdom and modern innovation. Zeus's reign was no longer defined by the incessant pinging of notifications, but by a harmonious balance between the tangible and the intangible, the ancient and the new. He understood that true power lay not just in wielding technological tools, but in fostering genuine human connections, nurturing collaborative relationships, and ensuring that technology served, rather than ruled, the greater good. The gods, previously isolated in their digital cocoons, began to interact more frequently with mortals, not just as detached observers, but as active participants in human affairs. Zeus initiated community projects, employing technology to coordinate efforts and efficiently allocate resources. The collaboration between divine and mortal worlds wasn't just functional, it was genuinely enriching. The mortals benefited from the gods' wisdom and resources, while the gods gained a deeper understanding of human needs and aspirations. The change was most noticeable in the way the gods interacted with each other. The constant bickering and power struggles, once exacerbated by the anonymity of digital communication, subsided as the gods engaged in more meaningful and constructive dialogues. Athena's strategic thinking was valued, Ares' strength was channeled constructively, and Hera's sharp insights were appreciated, albeit still with a healthy dose of skepticism. Even Hermes, always the master of communication, found a new appreciation for the subtleties of face-to-face interaction. This new era wasn't without its challenges. There were occasional glitches in the integrated system, unforeseen technical difficulties, and the occasional outburst from Ares. But these were minor hiccups in an otherwise smoothly functioning system. The overall atmosphere in Olympus was one of renewed purpose, collaboration, and understanding. The integration of technology and tradition wasn't just a technological upgrade, it was a fundamental shift in the gods' approach to governance and interaction. It was a testament to Zeus's ability to adapt, to learn, and to find a balance between the demands of the modern world and the enduring values of ancient tradition. The integration of technology had allowed them to expand their reach and efficiency without sacrificing the essence of their divine identity. It showed that progress doesn't require a complete abandonment of the past, but a thoughtful integration of the old and the new, creating a harmonious synergy that benefits all involved. This new balance wasn't a utopian ideal, it was a work in progress, constantly evolving and adapting to the changing dynamics of the divine and mortal realms. But it represented a significant milestone in the ongoing evolution of Olympus, demonstrating that even the most ancient of institutions can adapt and thrive in the digital age, provided they retain their core values and embrace innovation thoughtfully and strategically. The tale of Zeus's digital reign became a study in the delicate art of balance, demonstrating that the most effective leadership lies not in technological dominance, but in nurturing meaningful connections, fostering collaboration, and harnessing the power of both ancient wisdom and modern innovation to create a better future for all. The gods of Olympus, once trapped in a digital labyrinth, had found their way to a new path, a path that combined the best of the ancient world with the dynamism of the modern age. It was a testament to their adaptability, their resilience, and their enduring power. And it all began with a simple yet profound realization: sometimes disconnecting is the key to truly connecting. The iridescent glow of the Olympus server room faded, replaced by the soft, ambient light of Zeus's private cloud chamber. He sat perched on a cloud-cum ergonomic chair, a half-empty can of ambrosia cola, low sugar naturally, resting on his armrest. Outside, the digital sunsets painted the virtual sky in hues of electric blue and pixelated orange. The usual chaotic symphony of notifications was muted. Divine downtime was in effect. A rare moment of peace in the otherwise frenetic existence of the king of the gods. He swirled the remaining nectar in his can, the subtle fizz mirroring the turbulent thoughts in his head. The transformation of Olympus, the integration of technology and tradition, had been a monumental task, a Herculean effort on a scale even he hadn't fully anticipated. But it had worked, exceeding even his own expectations. The gods, once mired in a digital swamp of endless emails and urgent prayer requests, had found a new rhythm, a new balance. The key, he realized, had been the conscious effort to blend the ancient ways with the modern tools. The virtual temple, for instance, had proven to be more than just a technological marvel. It had fostered a deeper sense of connection between the gods and humanity. Mortals, unburdened by geographical limitations, could now access the divine in a way that was both convenient and reverent. The digital offerings, converted into tangible acts of kindness and environmental stewardship, demonstrated that even in the digital realm, genuine faith could manifest in real-world actions. The communication overhaul had also paid dividends, unexpected ones even. Ares, once infamous for his impulsive digital war declarations, had become surprisingly adept at strategic planning. His detailed briefing documents were marvels of concise language and strategic foresight, often exceeding the expectations of even Athena, his usual sparring partner in matters of military strategy. Athena herself, ever the master strategist, was now exploring the potential of AI-powered logistics to streamline Olympus's administrative functions, a development that would have once seemed like an unholy alliance of logic and divinity. Hera, the queen of Olympus, though still retaining her famously sharp tongue and even sharper eye for suspicious activity, had found a new level of appreciation for the efficiency of their revised alert system. Hephaestus's self-learning algorithm had significantly reduced the number of false alarms, allowing Hera to concentrate her energy on genuine threats to Olympus's security, whether divine or digital. Hermes, the tireless messenger god, had even discovered a fondness for virtual collaborative projects, employing his legendary communication skills in organizing cross-departmental efforts. His ability to manage digital communication channels, once used primarily for disseminating gossip, was now a crucial component of Olympus's highly efficient workflow. Yet despite the undeniable success of their digital integration, Zeus knew that this was just a beginning. The digital landscape was ever shifting, a dynamic entity that demanded constant adaptation and evolution. New technologies, new challenges, new forms of divine interaction would continue to emerge, presenting both opportunities and obstacles. He wondered, not without a hint of wry amusement, about the potential for a metaverse-based Olympus, a fully immersive virtual reality where gods and mortals could interact in ways unimaginable before. The prospect both fascinated and terrified him. The future, he pondered, was a vast, uncharted territory, a digital frontier where the rules were constantly evolving. The challenge for the gods was to navigate this landscape, preserving their ancient wisdom while embracing the power and potential of modern technology. The balancing act was delicate, a constant interplay between tradition and innovation. The success of Olympus in the digital age would hinge on their ability to adapt, to learn, and to constantly refine their approach. He took another sip of his ambrosia cola, the sweet taste a counterpoint to the complex challenges that lay ahead. The integration of technology had solved many issues, but not all. There were occasional glitches in the system, technical difficulties that required the combined efforts of Hephaestus and the IT department of Olympus, a curiously modern addition to the divine establishment. The occasional conflict still arose, though now often mediated through a series of structured discussions rather than the outright digital skirmishes of the past. Even the mortals, he reflected, presented a continually evolving challenge. Their digital dependence, their unwavering attachment to their smartphones and social media, presented a new set of interactions to manage. The stream of prayer DMs, while reduced considerably, still required a discerning approach. Triaging divine requests, separating genuine pleas from attention-seeking social media posts, remained a uniquely modern challenge. He smiled, a quiet, thoughtful smile. The myth of the modern god, he mused, wasn't about wielding lightning bolts or commanding legions. It was about navigating the complexities of the digital world, managing an overflowing inbox, and still finding time for the occasional philosophical discussion with Aries. It was about blending ancient wisdom with modern efficiency, using technology to bridge the gap between the divine and the mortal, fostering connections, and ensuring that the gods continued to be relevant and engaged in the ever-evolving human experience. The journey, he knew, was far from over. The gods were still learning, still adapting, still refining their approach. The digital age had presented them with unique challenges, forcing them to reevaluate their roles and responsibilities in a world where tweets were as potent as thunderbolts and memes held the power to shape public opinion. But in their adaptation, they had also found a new strength, a new understanding of their place in the world. As the digital dawn began to paint the virtual sky in its vibrant shades, Zeus felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. Olympus had not only survived the digital revolution, it had thrived. The gods had embraced the challenge, forged a new path, and in doing so, had reaffirmed their enduring relevance in a world increasingly defined by technology. The future held its share of uncertainty, of course, but they were ready. They were prepared to navigate the complexities of the digital landscape, ever evolving, ever adapting, forever engaging in the ongoing, humorous, and utterly bewildering saga of divine life in the digital age. The myth of the modern god was not yet written. It was a work in progress, a story still unfolding, one notification at a time. And, Zeus thought with a chuckle, the sequel was sure to be even more interesting.